Jerry Krause. Jerry Krause didn't just break up a dynasty. He scheduled its demolition before it was even finished. Before the Bulls played a single game, in the 1997 to 1998 season, Krause had already told Phil Jackson it would be his last year, regardless of what happened. It didn't matter if they went 82-0. The decision was already made. Jackson had 5 championships at that point and went on to win a 6th that very season. Michael Jordan responded by publicly stating he wouldn't play for any other Bulls coach, and Krause didn't blink. Jordan, Jackson, and Scottie Pippen were all headed toward uncertainty, and Krause let it happen. What made this stubbornness different is that it wasn't reactive. Krause had believed for years that organizations win championships, not individual stars. He wanted credit for drafting Horace Grant, trading for Pippen, hiring Jackson, and acquiring Dennis Rodman, despite criticism at every turn. That belief created years of tension, with the players receiving all the public recognition. After the second three-peat in 1998, with Jordan still elite, Pippen still productive, and Rodman still active, Krause chose to rebuild instead of extend the run. The aftermath was immediate. Chicago went from champions to 13-37 during the lockout season and stayed near the bottom of the standings for years. Krause never reversed course and kept defending the logic behind the decision until the very end. The same stubbornness that helped build one of the greatest dynasties in sports history is exactly what dismantled it. DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Ayton was the first overall pick in the 2018 draft, selected ahead of Luka and Trae Young. At 7 feet tall, with elite athleticism and soft hands around the basket, the tools were never the question. Throughout his entire career, the debate was never really about talent. It was always about something harder to measure. During Phoenix's 2021 finals run, Ayton looked like the center the Suns had drafted him to be. Then things shifted. Tensions developed. Questions about effort and commitment surfaced, and the Suns eventually moved him as part of the structure around the Damian Lillard trade that sent Ayton to Portland. Many expected a clean start with the Trailblazers. Instead, the same themes followed him. Reports described behavioral concerns including habitual lateness, frustration incidents, and broader issues around team culture. Portland didn't just bench him or reduce his role. They bought out his contract entirely, choosing to absorb the financial hit rather than keep him on the roster. That decision stands out because teams almost never do that with former number 1 overall picks still in their prime years. Ayton was still averaging double-digit points and rebounds when Portland walked away. Every coaching staff that worked with him pointed toward the same gap: flashes of all-star caliber play, followed by stretches where the effort and physicality simply didn't match the physical gifts. Multiple coaches asked for more defensive intensity and more consistency as a rim protector. The results never fully matched the requests. Tom Thibodeau. Thibs has spent over a decade being criticized for the exact same thing, and he has spent over a decade not caring. The criticism is always about minutes. Whether coaching the Chicago Bulls, the Minnesota Timberwolves, or the New York Knicks, Thibs consistently ranked among the league leaders in starter minutes. The names on the roster kept changing. The debate never did. In Chicago, it was Derrick Rose, Joakim Noah, Jimmy Butler, and Luol Deng carrying heavy workloads. In Minnesota, it was Karl Anthony Towns. In New York, it was the Knicks core, year after year. His defense was always the same. If a player can handle the minutes, the best players should be on the floor. The most telling moment of his Knicks tenure came when Mikal Bridges publicly acknowledged going to Thibs directly and encouraging him to trust the bench more. A player brought it up himself, and it still didn't dramatically change anything. His rotations were consistently criticized for being too short, his bench players for being underutilized, and his starters for being overworked. Analysts, fans, and former players repeated this argument across 3 different cities, spanning more than 10 years. Thibs heard all of it and kept coaching the same way. The irony is that his stubbornness produced real results. He turned Chicago into a contender, ended Minnesota's 14-year playoff drought, and restored credibility to New York. The same trait that generated endless criticism also generated genuine success, which is exactly why he never felt the need to change. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to be posting every day. Thanks. Anyways, Joey Crawford. Joey Crawford spent decades as one of the most technically active referees in NBA history, and on April 15, 2007, everything came to a head. During a Spurs-Mavericks game, Crawford issued 2 technical fouls to Tim Duncan while Duncan was sitting on the bench. Duncan wasn't even on the court. He was ejected anyway. Commissioner David Stern suspended Crawford indefinitely and kept him out for the rest of the season and the entire playoff. Stern also required Crawford to undergo professional evaluation before returning. Crawford later admitted the incident forced him to seek significantly more psychological counseling than he had ever pursued before. That's how far things had escalated. What makes this fit the stubborn category is that the Duncan incident wasn't a surprise. Crawford had spent years building a reputation for quick technicals and confrontational exchanges with players and coaches. Broadcasters and analysts described him as an official who believed deeply in controlling games through authority. The Duncan ejection wasn't viewed as an isolated mistake. Commentators at the time specifically called it the most visible example of a much longer pattern. Even after receiving one of the harshest referee punishments in the league history, Crawford came back and kept officiating. He ultimately worked more playoff games and finals games than any active referee at the time of his retirement in 2016. The suspension didn't fundamentally change his belief in his own authority. It slowed him down temporarily, and then he kept going, which says everything about how deeply ingrained his approach truly was throughout his career. Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons entered the NBA in 2016 as a 6-foot 10-point guard with elite vision, transition instincts, and defensive versatility that earned him Rookie of the Year and 3 All-Star selections. The problem was always the same thing. He wouldn't shoot. Year after year, coaches urged him to develop a jump shot. Off-season workout videos appeared regularly showing shooting drills. Games came and went with almost no visible change. In the 2020 to 2021 season, Simmons attempted exactly 10 three-pointers total. By the 2021 playoffs, teams had fully adjusted and were simply daring him to fire from anywhere outside the paint. The most symbolic moment came in Game 7 against Atlanta when Simmons passed up a clear dunk opportunity in the fourth quarter rather than risk drawing a foul. That play didn't create the criticism. It became the face of criticism that had existed since his time at LSU. After Philadelphia's elimination, Simmons made it clear he wanted out. The Sixers tried to repair the relationship. Simmons refused to return and held out through training camp. The team withheld approximately $8,250,000 from his contract and eventually suspended him for conduct detrimental to the team. Most players who request trades eventually accept a resolution. Simmons held the line for months through fines, suspensions, public criticism, and trade uncertainty. He was eventually dealt to Brooklyn in the James Harden trade. The same offensive concerns that defined his Philadelphia years followed him there too. The debate over his shot never stopped following him either. George Karl. George Karl won over 1,100 NBA games across a Hall of Fame career and spent a significant portion of that career in documented conflicts with star players. The list is long. Carmelo Anthony, Ray Allen, Kenyon Martin, DeMarcus Cousins, and J.R. Smith all had notable tensions with Karl at various points. The range of franchises and personalities involved makes it a pattern rather than a series of isolated incidents. With Denver, Karl coached Carmelo to the 2009 Western Conference Final. Despite that shared success, tensions remained throughout. Years after their partnership ended, Karl continued publicly criticizing Anthony in interviews and in his book Furious George, reopening disputes long after they had stopped working together. The response from Kenyon Martin was fierce. Martin strongly objected to Karl's comments and fired back publicly, producing one of the most visible coach-player feuds involving a retired coach criticizing former players from a distance. Even in Seattle and Milwaukee, Karl's relationship with Ray Allen was consistently described as strained, despite coaching one of the greatest shooters in league history. Karl's core belief was that no player should be bigger than the team. That philosophy helped him build competitive rosters across multiple cities. It also put him directly in conflict with superstar personalities who expected different treatment. Most retired coaches eventually soften over time. Karl largely did the opposite. His memoir reignited old conflicts years after the events occurred. Supporters called it honesty. Critics called it an inability to move on. Either way, more than 1,100 wins gave him decades of evidence that his methods worked, and he never stopped defending them. Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler's most famous moment of stubbornness happened in October 2018 when he walked into a Timberwolves practice and challenged everyone in the building, coaches, executives, starters. He led a group of reserves against the first unit and verbally confronted members of the organization throughout the session. This came after helping end Minnesota's 14-year playoff drought in 2018. Butler had grown increasingly frustrated with what he viewed as a lack of accountability from Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins, and made no effort to hide it. Rather than quietly accepting the situation, he demanded a trade and turned the whole thing into one of the most discussed locker room moments in recent NBA history. What separates Butler from most players in conflict situations is that he never softened his message, even as criticism mounted. He publicly defended his competitive standards throughout the backlash and made it consistently clear that those standards existed for a reason. The same pattern appeared in Chicago, where he became the face of the franchise after emerging as an extremely demanding presence. It showed up in Philadelphia, where he clashed with aspects of the offensive structure. It even surfaced in Miami, which isn't easy to do. The Heat are famous for their organizational culture and demanding environment. Yet even there, Butler eventually reached a point where he was unwilling to compromise. By early 2025, Miami suspended him for conduct detrimental to the team. Even after Pat Riley publicly said they wouldn't trade him, Butler held his position. A 31st overall pick who became a 6-time All-Star, built that career entirely on refusing to lower his standards for anyone. Danny Ainge. Danny Ainge built his entire front office reputation around one defining trait: refusing to let emotion drive decision. The clearest example is Isaiah Thomas. Thomas played through a severe hip injury during the 2017 playoff, while simultaneously dealing with the death of his sister. He finished 5th in MVP voting that season and had become one of the most beloved players in Boston franchise history. Most executives would have found it nearly impossible to move someone under those circumstances. Ainge traded him to Cleveland for Kyrie Irving anyway. The public backlash was immediate and significant. Ainge stayed the course. For years, fans and media criticized him for accumulating draft picks without spending them. He ignored the pressure and moved on his own timetable. When trade discussions didn't meet his standards, he walked away regardless of outside noise. Executives around the league consistently described Ainge as one of the most difficult negotiators in professional sports because he rarely deviated from his valuations no matter what others wanted. The Kevin Garnett trade, the Ray Allen trade, the Paul Pierce and Garnett trade to Brooklyn, and the Thomas for Irving deal all reflected the same approach. Ainge consistently chose organizational flexibility over personal attachment and never appeared troubled by the criticism that followed each move. His rebuild after the Pierce-Garnett era was another example. Many observers pushed for aggressive moves immediately. Ainge spent years accumulating assets instead, consistently resisting pressure to spend them prematurely. That patience frustrated fans, but helped create one of the strongest asset collections in the league. Unlike most stubborn personalities, Ainge's version was rarely emotional. It was purely calculated, and he applied it regardless of how unpopular the decision looked at the time. Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson's stubbornness wasn't just about basketball, it was about identity. From the moment he entered the NBA, Iverson rejected the idea that he needed to fit a conventional mold. He openly embraced hip-hop culture, cornrows, tattoos, arm sleeves, and oversized clothing, at a time when the league was pushing a very different image of professionalism. Rather than adjusting under criticism, he doubled down and eventually influenced an entire generation of players and fans. His relationship with Larry Brown provides the clearest basketball example. Brown pushed Iverson consistently toward better practice habits, more trust in teammates, and tighter offensive structure. Iverson respected Brown, but repeatedly resisted becoming the type of player Brown envisioned. Their dynamic featured years of tension because neither man would fully surrender his position. Then came the 2002 press conference. After Philadelphia's playoff elimination, Iverson delivered what became one of the most famous interviews in sports history, spending several minutes focused on the word practice in a way that made clear the external criticism hadn't landed as intended. Years later, he maintained the message had been misunderstood, rather than acknowledging any validity to the critique itself. His style of play followed the same pattern: usage rates among the highest in league history during his prime, attacking defense the same way at 6 feet tall against larger guards with no meaningful adjustment for changing trends. Even late in his career, when a brief stint in Detroit required accepting a reduced role, Iverson openly expressed dissatisfaction rather than quietly adapting. He refused to change his appearance, his personality, and his game. That refusal helped turn him into one of the most influential figures in basketball history. Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers is the only coach in NBA history to be on the losing side of 3 separate playoff series after holding a 3-1 lead. The 2003 Orlando Magic lost to Detroit. The 2015 Clippers lost to Houston. The 2020 Clippers lost to Denver. All 3 times, a 3-1 advantage disappeared. Despite years of mounting criticism about those collapses, Rivers largely maintained that the public ignored how difficult it was to build those leads in the first place. In 2025, he publicly stated that he didn't receive enough credit for winning the first 3 games in those series, and described some of the criticism as unfair. That response, years after the final collapse, reflects a coach who remained committed to his own framing, regardless of how overwhelming the outside narrative had become. His rotation tendencies followed similar patterns across Boston, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, and Milwaukee. Rivers consistently preferred veteran players over younger options, and teams under his coaching repeatedly received criticism for predictable rotations, slow adjustments, and reluctance to make dramatic tactical changes mid-series. Those criticisms followed him across 4 separate franchises over more than 2 decades. On the other side of the ledger, Rivers won the 2008 NBA championship, earned Coach of the Year, surpassed 1,100 career wins, and earned Hall of Fame induction. Because those results were real, he consistently pointed to them when defending his methods and rarely suggested his core philosophy needed fundamental revision. More than 25 years into his coaching career, he was still defending the same core positions he had always held. Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard's stubbornness came from a gap between how coaches and analysts saw him and how he saw himself. By the time he reached the Houston Rockets and Los Angeles Lakers, the consensus around the league was consistent. Howard was most effective as a rim-running, pick-and-roll center, elite rebound, elite defender, elite lob threat. That profile was enormously valuable to a well-constructed team. Howard largely rejected it. He wanted post-up touches. He wanted to be viewed as a dominant offensive centerpiece, rather than a specialized big. Former Lakers coach Mike D'Antoni addressed it publicly, stating that many players understand their role but simply refuse to accept it, naming Howard directly in that context. The conflict wasn't limited to Los Angeles. Howard clashed with Stan Van Gundy in Orlando, with D'Antoni in Los Angeles, and with Kevin McHale in Houston. Different organizations, different coaches, different rosters, and the same recurring theme about role. Acceptance and offensive expectations kept surfacing. After Orlando, teams kept expecting a reset. Instead, similar complaints followed him through Houston, Atlanta, and Charlotte. Through all of it, Howard continued advocating for a larger offensive role. Even his back injuries reduced some of his athletic advantages, and the league steadily moved away from post-centric offenses entirely. The irony of his career is that his best late career stretch came when he finally accepted a specialist role during the 2020 Lakers championship run, playing as a defensive anchor and screen setter. That contrast makes everything that came before look even more stubborn in hindsight. The role he resisted for years was waiting for him the whole time. Vlade Divac. Divac held the 2nd overall pick in the 2018 NBA draft and passed on Luka. That single decision defines his entire tenure running the Sacramento Kings. What makes it fit the stubborn category isn't only that the decision was wrong. Executives make wrong decisions constantly. It's that Divac had every possible advantage to get it right and passed anyway. He grew up in the former Yugoslavia. He understood European basketball at a level most American executives simply didn't possess. He had watched EuroLeague prospects for years firsthand and knew that world better than virtually anyone else in an NBA front office. Sacramento selected Marvin Bagley III instead. Luka won Rookie of the Year, became a perennial MVP candidate, made multiple All-NBA first teams, and transformed Dallas into a consistent contender. Bagley struggled to establish himself and was eventually moved. As Luka's dominance became undeniable, Divac still resisted a clean admission of error. In 2024, years after Luka had become one of the best players on the planet, Divac stated that time will tell on the Bagley decision. Reports surrounding the draft suggested Sacramento prioritized positional fit around De'Aaron Fox rather than taking the best available player, with some accounts suggesting Divac believed the two couldn't coexist in the same backcourt. That same draft also included Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Brunson, Trae Young, and Mikal Bridges. The refusal to publicly reverse course years later, despite evidence being as clear as it gets in the NBA, is precisely why Divac remains one of the most discussed executives in recent draft history. Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant never needed external validation to keep going. He needed competition. His entire career was built around refusing to accept that anything was beyond him, and that belief produced constant friction. The most famous example is his relationship with Shaq. The two won 3 consecutive championships from 2000 through 2002, arguably the most dominant pairing the NBA had seen in years. Despite winning 3 straight titles together, the relationship kept deteriorating because Kobe refused to permanently accept a secondary role behind a Hall of Fame center in his prime. He believed he could carry a championship team himself. Shaq believed the franchise still belonged to him. Neither yielded. Shaq was eventually traded in 2004. After that, Kobe faced sustained criticism for shooting volume during several seasons where he led the league in scoring while routinely drawing double and triple teams. Many analysts pushed for a more pass-first approach. The 2005 to 2006 season became a defining example. Kobe averaged 35.4 points per game, the highest single-season scoring average since Michael Jordan's 1986 to 1987 season. Rather than adjusting to satisfy critics, he escalated. His Mamba mentality wasn't a marketing phrase. Former teammates described training habits most professionals couldn't sustain, including early morning workouts and extra shooting sessions that became legendary throughout the league. After tearing his Achilles in 2013, he attempted to return as the same superstar, rather than accepting a reduced profile. 5 championships, 18 All-Star appearances, 15 All-NBA selections, and over 33,000 career points came from someone who simply refused to accept limitations. Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban bought the Dallas Mavericks in 2000 and immediately made clear he wasn't going to behave like a traditional NBA owner. Most owners manage from a distance. Cuban sat courtside, argued with referees on the spot, publicly challenged league decisions, and accumulated millions of dollars in fines from the league office over the year. After repeated punishments, he rarely changed his behavior for long. He also believed strongly in his own analytical instincts before it was fashionable to do so. Cuban invested heavily in technology, charter travel, player nutrition, sports science, and analytics years before most franchises caught up. When those ideas were questioned, he stayed committed. Many eventually became standard practices across the entire league. His roster-building approach reflected the same personality. Throughout Dirk Nowitzki's prime, Cuban aggressively pursued stars and major moves rather than standing pat. That approach produced the 2011 championship, one of the most celebrated upsets in finals history. It also produced controversy. Steve Nash departed in free agency. Jalen Brunson left for New York without meaningful compensation. Even after criticism, Cuban generally defended the reasoning behind his decision, rather than publicly admitting mistakes. He openly discussed tanking strategy in ways most owners actively avoided, challenging league positions on the subject directly and consistently arguing from his own perspective, regardless of the controversy generated. He challenged commissioners, referees, league policies, ownership conventions, and media narratives across more than 2 decades. Even after selling controlling interest in the Mavericks, he remained publicly vocal about franchise decisions, demonstrating the same willingness to say exactly what he believed, regardless of the audience or circumstances. Darvin Ham. Darvin Ham spent the 2023-24 Lakers season under near constant scrutiny over his rotation decision, and he largely responded by defending those decisions rather than dramatically changing course. The criticism was consistent throughout the year. Fans, analysts, and reporters questioned why players like Taurean Prince and Cam Reddish were receiving significant minutes, while other options sat on the bench. Ham generally stayed committed to his evaluation, regardless of the volume of outside criticism. Lineup instability added to the frustration. The Lakers cycled through numerous starting lineups across the season. Ham pointed to injuries and roster availability as major contributing factors. Critics argued that some of those decisions were self-inflicted rather than injury-driven, and the back and forth continued for months without resolution. Reports eventually emerged describing internal frustration within the organization regarding rotations and adjustments, with accounts suggesting players and personnel had serious questions about some of the decisions being made throughout the year. Rather than acknowledging major strategic failures, Ham consistently explained the reasoning behind his choices, pointed to circumstances beyond his control, and expressed continued belief in his overall process. When the Lakers fired him in 2024, Ham publicly expressed surprise at the decision and suggested that coaches in similar circumstances frequently received extensions rather than dismissals. That response said a lot about where his head was. After one of the most scrutinized coaching seasons in recent Lakers history, his primary public reaction was that he likely should have kept his job. What separates Ham from others on this list is that his stubbornness was never confrontational. He simply believed in his methods and defended them consistently throughout the entire tenure. Rajon Rondo. Rajon Rondo may have been the most intellectually stubborn player of his generation because his refusal to change came directly from his certainty that he understood basketball better than almost everyone around him. Former Celtics personnel consistently described him as one of the smartest players they had ever worked with. The problem was that Rondo often believed that intelligence extended above the coaches on the sideline. That belief led to documented tensions with Doc Rivers, Rick Carlisle, George Karl, Alvin Gentry, and Jim Boylan across different stops throughout his career. He openly questioned play calls, defensive schemes, and coaching decisions in ways most players simply never would. The most dramatic example came during the 2015 playoffs in Dallas. Rondo had been acquired specifically to help the Mavericks make a deep run. During a first-round series against Houston, he clashed repeatedly with Carlisle along the sideline. The relationship collapsed within months of his arrival, and he effectively stopped playing meaningful minutes for the franchise. A partnership designed to help a contender ended before the series was finished. As the NBA evolved into a spacing and shooting league, Rondo largely kept playing his original game. He prioritized passing over scoring, preferred controlling pace, and rarely embraced high-volume three-point shooting. His assist-first mentality stayed intact, regardless of how the league changed around him. 4 All-Star appearances, 4 All-Defensive Team selections, 3 assist titles, and 2 championships came from that approach, which only reinforced his confidence in it. That combination of elite intelligence and consistent results made him genuinely difficult to coach because he usually had a logical reason for believing he was right. Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan's stubbornness as a player came from a source most athletes never access: the absolute belief that no challenge was bigger than his will to overcome it. The Detroit Pistons developed the Jordan rules specifically to stop him, a set of physical defensive principles built around wearing him down through repeated hard contact. Many elite scorers would have adjusted their approach significantly to avoid the punishment. Jordan attacked the basket anyway, season after season, and eliminated Detroit in the 1991 playoffs. Even minor perceived slights became fuel. Teammates and coaches described a player who turned trash talk, contract disputes, draft decisions, and individual plays into long-term motivation, sometimes holding on to things for years afterward. After winning 3 championships and retiring in 1993, he came back. After winning 3 more championships and retiring again, he came back at age 38 with Washington because he still believed he could compete against elite NBA players. As an owner with Charlotte, the same personality showed up differently. Jordan resisted full-scale tanking strategies during much of his ownership tenure, preferring to remain competitive even when a complete rebuild may have produced better long-term outcomes. As analytics became increasingly influential across the league, the Hornets were frequently viewed as lagging behind more analytically driven organizations. He remained majority owner from 2010 through 2023, largely sticking with his organizational philosophy despite consistent criticism of the franchise's performance. Draft choices reflecting his own evaluations drew scrutiny. The confidence in his own judgment that made him the greatest player in NBA history carried directly into how he ran the front office throughout his entire ownership tenure. Stan Van Gundy. Stan Van Gundy built a coaching career on blunt honesty and unwavering basketball principle, and no moment captured that better than what happened in Orlando in 2012. During widespread reports that Dwight Howard wanted him fired, Van Gundy addressed the situation directly and openly with reporters. Seconds later, Howard walked in and stood beside him. The exchange became one of the most memorable coach-player moments in league history. Most coaches would have found a quieter, more diplomatic path. Van Gundy said what he believed and dealt with the consequences. His Orlando teams were built around spacing, and Howard at the rim, years before that approach became standard across the league. He surrounded Howard with shooters and built one of the NBA's more sophisticated early modern offenses, reaching the 2009 finals in the process. When critics questioned the approach, he defended it consistently. He also treated stars and role players by the same standards throughout his career, which occasionally created tension but earned consistent respect from players who valued accountability. During his Detroit tenure as president and coach, Van Gundy acquired Blake Griffin in a major trade and made several other significant roster decisions that drew criticism from analysts and fans. He consistently defended the reasoning behind those moves, regardless of the public reaction. His communication style never changed. Whether speaking to players, media, front offices, or later as a broadcaster, Van Gundy said exactly what he thought in every setting. Once he formed a basketball opinion, He held it. His views on spacing, defense, team construction, and player accountability stayed remarkably stable throughout a career that produced multiple 50-win seasons and one of the most influential early modern offenses in league history. Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving was 25 years old when he requested a trade away from the Cleveland Cavaliers in the summer of 2017. Cavaliers had just reached the NBA Finals for the third consecutive year. LeBron James was the best player in the world and was Irving's teammate. Most players in that situation would have stayed as long as possible. Irving wanted out because he wanted to lead his own team rather than continue being viewed as a secondary piece alongside LeBron. Cleveland traded him to Boston. In his first full season with the Celtics, Irving publicly stated he intended to re-sign when he became a free agent. As his tenure progressed and relationships with the organization and teammates deteriorated, Irving remained committed to his own perspective rather than adjusting to meet expectations. He left anyway. In Brooklyn, the Nets assembled one of the most talented rosters in modern NBA history, alongside Kevin Durant and James Harden. Organizational conflicts and Irving's personal decisions repeatedly created friction throughout the partnership. The most expensive personal stand of his career came during the COVID-19 vaccine mandate period. Under New York City regulations, Irving was ineligible to play in home games without vaccination. He refused, despite knowing it would cost him significant playing time and millions of dollars. He held that position for an extended period regardless of the financial and competitive consequences. What makes Irving unique on this list is that external criticism has almost never changed his behavior. 8 All-Star selections, multiple All-NBA teams, a championship ring, and the game-winning three-pointer in Game 7 of the 2016 Finals all came from someone who made it consistently clear that outside approval was never the measuring stick he used for any decision. Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman won 5 championships, made 8 all-defensive teams, earned 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards, and led the NBA in rebounding for 7 consecutive seasons. He also missed practices, took vacations during the season, dyed his hair constantly, and generated more headlines off the court than most players generate in their entire careers. The stubbornness started with the work itself. Former teammates and coaches described Rodman spending enormous amounts of time analyzing shot trajectories, spin angles, and missed shot tendencies in a way no other player in the league was doing at that time. Once he developed his rebounding methods, he rarely changed them regardless of outside input or coaching instruction. The San Antonio years show how far he would push things. By the mid-1990s, Rodman had become increasingly difficult for the Spurs to manage. Conflicts developed with coach Bob Hill and members of the organization. Even with San Antonio as a playoff team, the Spurs eventually traded arguably the best rebounder in basketball for a modest return, rather than continue dealing with the dynamic. The Bulls took the gamble and brought him in under Phil Jackson's highly structured system. Even there, Rodman remained exactly Rodman. The same characteristics that made him challenging in San Antonio surfaced in Chicago too. Jackson found ways to manage it, and Rodman delivered 3 championships in return. What separates Rodman from every other stubborn personality on this list is the direction of his stubbornness. Most people here resisted adapting to what organizations wanted from them. Rodman forced organizations to adapt entirely around him and operated under different rules than virtually every other player throughout the championship run in Chicago. Donald Sterling. Donald Sterling purchased the franchise that became the Los Angeles Clippers in 1981 and spent the next 3+ decades demonstrating what stubbornness looks like at the ownership level. Between the early 1980s and early 2010s, the Clippers endured one of the worst sustained stretches of losing in professional sports. Former players, coaches, and executives repeatedly and publicly criticized how the organization was operating. Sterling reached the playoffs only sporadically during most of his tenure. Commissioner David Stern fined Sterling multiple times over the years for various comments and conduct issues. Even after league discipline, the behavior largely continued without meaningful change. The defining moment came in 2014 when audio recordings became public in which Sterling made racist comments during a private conversation. The reaction was immediate and total. Players threatened boycotts, sponsors withdrew, political leaders commented publicly. The entire league unified against him. Even then, Sterling's first instinct was to fight rather than step aside. He pursued legal action and challenged the NBA's attempt to force a sale of the franchise. Rather than acknowledging what had occurred and facilitating a transition, he contested the entire process. The league imposed a lifetime ban, and the Clippers sold for a record $2 billion to Steve Ballmer. What puts Sterling in a category of his own is the duration. For more than 30 years, he faced criticism from fans, media, players, coaches, fellow owners, and the league commissioner. His approach rarely changed meaningfully. Unlike most stubborn figures, who eventually adjust under sufficient pressure, Sterling spent 3 decades resisting nearly every attempt to alter how he operated. His removal from the league wasn't a choice. It was a forced outcome, after everything else had already failed. MJ never lost. Before Michael Jordan ever won a championship, he lost in the playoffs 7 times. 7. The Milwaukee Bucks eliminated him in 1985. The Boston Celtics eliminated him in 1986 and again in 1987. Then the Detroit Pistons took over. Detroit beat Chicago in the Eastern Semifinals in 1988, the Eastern Finals in 1989, and the Eastern Finals again in 1990. Then in 1995, the Orlando Magic ended his comeback season. So the idea that Jordan never lost when it mattered just isn't true. The Detroit Pistons specifically were a problem for years. The famous Jordan rules were a defensive scheme Detroit created specifically to stop him, and it worked 3 consecutive postseasons. Game 7 of the 1990 Eastern Conference Finals ended with Chicago losing, and Jordan's season over. That's not a myth. That's documented history. The confusion comes from one real fact. Jordan went 6-0 in the NBA Finals. That's absolutely true. But people took never lost in the finals and turned it into never lost when it mattered. And those are completely different statements. The finals is one round. The earlier rounds matter too. Jordan also lost after his first retirement. He came back late in the 1994 to 1995 season after playing baseball, averaged over 30 points in the playoff series against Orlando, and still lost. The championship didn't happen. People forget that season entirely. What actually made Jordan's career great wasn't perfection. The Celtics beat him. The Pistons beat him 3 straight times. The Magic beat him. He failed repeatedly, learned from it, and then won 6 championships. That's the real story. The factual version of Jordan's legacy is that he never lost an NBA Finals series, but he experienced years of playoff heartbreak before his first title. That story is more impressive than the myth anyway. Pretending he was unbeatable from day one actually takes away from how hard the journey really was. Wilt Chamberlain played against plumbers. The phrase Wilt Chamberlain played against plumbers and milkmen is probably the most repeated dismissal in NBA history, and it's mostly wrong. During Wilt's prime, the NBA had between 8 and 14 teams, and yes, the league was smaller, but smaller didn't mean weak. Wilt's direct competition included Bill Russell, Walt Bellamy, Nate Thurmond, Willis Reed, Jerry Lucas, Elgin Baylor, Oscar Robertson, Jerry West, and Bob Pettit. Most of those names are still considered among the greatest players ever. Wilt and Bill Russell alone faced each other 143 times, including the playoffs. That's one of the most significant rivalries in basketball history. The size argument also falls apart quickly. Wilt was officially listed at 7'1" and around 250 pounds. The centers he actually faced weren't short. Bill Russell stood around 6'10". Nate Thurmond was 6'11". Walt Bellamy was 6'11". Willis Reed was 6'10". The average center height during Wilt's career was surprisingly close to modern center sizing. There weren't 6'4" milkmen trying to guard him. Athletically, Wilt wasn't just bigger than everyone around him. He was faster. He high jumped 6'6" competitively. He ran the 440-yard dash in 49 seconds. He triple jumped over 50 feet and put the shot over 53 feet. Many historians argue that a 7'1" athlete with those measurables would be extraordinary, even in today's league. There's also an argument that fewer teams actually made competition harder, not easier. With only around 100 total roster spots, talent was incredibly concentrated. Today, there are over 400 roster spots. Back then, every night, Wilt was seeing multiple future Hall of Famers rather than expansion-level rosters. The NBA also literally changed its rules because of Wilt, including widening the lane and adjusting free throw rules. You don't change the rules of a sport because someone's dominating average workers. A fair version of this conversation acknowledges a less developed era with fewer international players and less advanced training. That's true, but plumbers and milkmen is a modern exaggeration used to dismiss accomplishments that held up against elite competition. LeBron isn't clutch. This narrative has been running since at least 2011, and it survives mostly because of a handful of highly publicized failures that people remember far more than the much larger body of evidence against it. The reputation mostly traces back to the 2011 NBA Finals against Dallas, a few missed late-game shots that got replayed constantly, and the fact that LeBron often made the correct basketball play by passing to open teammates instead of forcing shots. People treated "didn't always take the final shot" as proof he wasn't clutch. Since entering the league in 2003, LeBron has made more game-tying or go-ahead playoff shots in the final 24 seconds than any other player in NBA history. And he's done it at a higher percentage than league average. In 2007 against Detroit in Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals, he scored 48 points, including Cleveland's final 25 straight points and 29 of their last 30. Many analysts consider it one of the greatest clutch playoff performances ever. In 2012, facing elimination against Boston in Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals, he posted 45 points, 15 rebounds, and 5 assists. In 2013's Game 7 against San Antonio, he scored 37 with 12 rebounds and hit the dagger mid-range jumper in the final minute. Then there's 2016. Down 3-1 against the 73-win Golden State Warriors, LeBron dropped back-to-back 41-point games in Games 5 and 6, recorded a triple-double in Game 7, and produced the chase-down block on Andre Iguodala with under 2 minutes left in a tied Finals Game 7. His buzzer-beater record includes playoff game winners in 2009, 2013, 2015, 2018, twice. No player in the modern tracking era has more playoff game winners. The myth survives because Jordan's misses were treated as rare exceptions, while LeBron's were treated as evident. It also survives because LeBron has played in more high-leverage games than almost anyone, which means more chances to miss. The sample size is enormous because he's appeared in more playoff games than any player in history. The evidence says he's one of the most clutch postseason performers the league has ever seen. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to be posting every day. Thanks. Anyways, Curry is bad in the finals. This narrative existed for years because Curry didn't win Finals MVP until 2022. People incorrectly turned "didn't win Finals MVP" into "doesn't perform in the finals," and those aren't the same statement. In the 2015 Finals against Cleveland, Curry averaged around 26 points, 6 assists, and 5 rebounds per game. Golden State won the championship. The 2017 Finals numbers were 26.8 points, 8 rebounds, and 9.4 assists per game against Cleveland. Those numbers are absurd for a point guard in a finals series. In 2018, again against Cleveland, he averaged 27.5 points, 6 rebounds, and 6.8 assists. That's not underperforming, that's a superstar finals performance. Then 2022 happened and destroyed whatever was left of the narrative. Against the Boston Celtics, the league's top-ranked defense, Curry averaged 31.2 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, and 5.2, made threes per game on 43.7% from 3. Game 4 alone, with Golden State trailing the series 2-1, he responded with 43 points and 10 rebounds. Many analysts consider it the greatest game of his career. Without it, the Warriors likely fall behind 3-1. Instead, they won 3 of the next 4 and captured the championship. He won finals unanimously. One of the biggest mistakes in evaluating Curry is only looking at scoring. Defenses routinely blitzed him, picked him up 30 feet from the basket, and sent multiple defenders at him off screens. That movement creates open shots for teammates without Curry touching the ball. Advanced metrics consistently showed Golden State's offense became dramatically more efficient with him on the floor. His finals opponents included LeBron-led Cavaliers, the Celtics' elite defense, and championship-caliber rosters, specifically designed to stop him. He still produced superstar numbers. Before 2022, critics used 0 Finals MVPs as a gotcha, but Finals MVP voting is one media vote, one series, and heavily narrative influenced. Performance and awards aren't identical. 4 championships, multiple finals, averaging over 26 points, and the greatest individual final series of 2022 say everything. Flu game, Game 5 of the 1997 NBA Finals, was played on June 11, 1997. Chicago and Utah were tied 2-2. Jordan played through severe illness and finished with 38 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, and 44 minutes played. Chicago won 90-88. The performance immediately became known as the flu game. The problem is that Jordan himself later said it wasn't the flu. During the last dance, Jordan explained that the illness came from pizza he ate the night before in Utah. He described waking up in the middle of the night, vomiting, and extremely sick, and specifically said it was food poisoning rather than influenza. His longtime trainer, Tim Grover, had actually been saying this publicly since 2013, years before The Last Dance aired. Grover described a late-night pizza delivery in Utah and said he immediately believed the illness was food poisoning the moment he saw Jordan's condition. The nickname was created in real time by television broadcasters and reporters who observed flu-like symptoms without knowing the actual cause. By the time the food poisoning story became publicly documented, the flu game was already one of the most famous names in sports history, and nobody was changing it. The lie isn't that Jordan was sick. He was absolutely sick, severely enough that his condition before the game was genuinely alarming. The lie is specifically the label, flu. The available evidence points more toward food poisoning than influenza. Even the NBA has acknowledged the uncertainty by describing the illness as potentially food poisoning or a virus, rather than definitively influenza. The performance itself was real. The illness was real. The degree of difficulty was real. A more accurate name would be Jordan's food poisoning game, but nobody's calling it. The famous name attached to one of the greatest finals performances in history is probably medically incorrect, and the person at the center of the story told us so himself. Fabricated player heights. For decades, NBA heights were closer to marketing numbers than actual measurement. Before the league standardized measurements in 2019, teams could list players however they wanted. Some players were measured in shoes, some without. Some were rounded up, some were rounded down, and there was no league-wide enforcement. Kevin Garnett was listed at 6'11" for virtually his entire career. Multiple teammates, coaches, and opponents believed he was actually closer to 7'1". Garnett reportedly preferred being listed below 7 feet because he didn't want to be viewed strictly as a center. Kevin Durant is the most famous example. Durant was listed at 6'9" for years and openly admitted that wasn't accurate. He once joked he was around 6'10" and 3/4 barefoot and over 7 feet in shoes. When official measurements were finally conducted in 2019, Durant measured approximately 6'10" barefoot. For years, fans were watching a player who was essentially 7 feet tall being called 6'9". Charles Barkley was officially listed at 6'6", but many measurements placed him closer to 6'4" or slightly taller barefoot. That means one of the greatest power forwards ever was giving away even more size than fans realized. Magic Johnson was listed at 6'9", with some teammates believing he was closer to 6'10" or 6'10.5". Bill Walton once joked that NBA heights were basically fiction, and players and coaches from older generations openly acknowledged roster heights were routinely exaggerated. The NBA finally stepped in before the 2019 to 2020 season and required standardized barefoot measurements. The results were shocking, with some players changing by 1 or even 2 inches. The league effectively admitted that listed heights hadn't been accurate for years. Height affected everything. Position labels shaped careers, all-star voting, contract negotiations, scouting reports, and draft evaluations. A player listed at 6'9" was called a versatile forward. A player listed at 7'0" was immediately viewed as a center. That difference affected perception across entire careers. The lie isn't that every listed height was wrong. The lie is that fans assumed roster heights were precise measurements. For much of NBA history, many of them simply weren't. Love's hand. In October 2012, Kevin Love fractured the 3rd and 4th metacarpals in his right shooting hand before the season began. The Minnesota Timberwolves announced the injury occurred during a workout while Love was doing knuckle push-ups. Love himself repeated that explanation publicly multiple times. Medical evaluations confirmed the fracture, noted no surgery was immediately required, and projected a recovery of roughly 6 to 8 weeks. Nobody believed. The explanation sounded too strange, and professional athletes have a long history of covering up embarrassing injuries involving punched walls, punched doors, punched lockers, fights with teammates, and household accidents later rebranded as workout incidents. Because of that history, many people automatically assumed Love was hiding something. The most famous rumor claimed Love got angry, punched a refrigerator, and the team covered it up. The problem is there's never been publicly verified evidence supporting that story. No witness, no documentation, no confirmation from Love, the Timberwolves, teammates, or league sources. The refrigerator theory became popular largely because people thought it sounded more believable than push-ups. which is a strange reason to treat a rumor as fact. Here's the thing though, a metacarpal fracture absolutely can occur during knuckle push-ups. If the hand is improperly loaded, body weight shifts unevenly, a knuckle collapses under pressure, or the wrist isn't aligned correctly. That type of fracture is medically possible. Love later described it as a freak accident, where his hand simply gave way during a push-up variation he regularly performed. Freak accidents happen. That's why they're called freak accidents. The story survived because it sounded weird. NBA fans love a good conspiracy. And since there was no video of either version, speculation never had anything to push against. The only verified facts are that Love broke his hand. The Timberwolves said it happened during knuckle push-ups. Love said it happened during knuckle push-ups. And doctors treated the fracture. No evidence has ever emerged proving another cause. The real lie here isn't necessarily the push-up story. The bigger lie is the certainty many fans carry that the official explanation was fake, despite no evidence ever actually proving otherwise. Kobe is a chucker. Kobe Bryant's career field goal percentage was 44.7%. And for some fans, that's where the conversation ends. The problem is that field goal percentage ignores three-pointers, free throws, shot difficulty, shot creation burden, error, and usage rate, which are enormous omissions when evaluating a score. True shooting percentage incorporates two-point shots, three-point shots, and free throws, and is one of the most accurate measures of scoring efficiency. Kobe finished with a career true shooting percentage around 55%. By modern standards, that might not look spectacular, but comparing a player from the 2000s to 2020s efficiency environments is misleading because league-wide efficiency was dramatically lower during much of his prime. His true shooting percentage reportedly remained above league average through his first 17 seasons, right up until the post-Achilles decline. That completely contradicts the inefficient gunner label. A truly inefficient chucker is below league average while taking huge volume. Kobe generally wasn't. The difficulty of his shot profile also gets ignored constantly. He regularly took late clock shots, double team shots, triple team shots, end of quarter heaves, and isolation possessions where the play broke down and the ball ended up in his hands as a last resort. Many possessions just ended with give Kobe the ball and hope he creates something. Those situations naturally produce lower percentages, but somebody still has to take them. Kobe also operated during a completely different era. His prime years featured slower pace, fewer threes, more mid-range scoring, more post-ups, and more isolation offense. Today, teams actively avoid many of the shots he built his career around. Judging a 2004 shot profile by 2026 standards produces distorted conclusions. The playoff evidence matters too. 5 championships, 7 finals appearances, career playoff true shooting over 54%. Playoff defenses are stronger and specifically designed to stop stars. Kobe remained a highly effective postseason scorer for nearly 2 decades against that level of opposition. Serious analysts who examine his career typically acknowledge extremely high volume, above average efficiency relative to his era, massive shot creation burden, and elite offensive value. Calling him an inefficient chucker ignores both the analytics and the context entirely. No defense. The most common complaint goes, teams score 120 to 130 points every night, therefore nobody plays defense. The problem is that high scoring doesn't automatically mean bad defense. In many ways, modern NBA defense is actually more difficult than it's ever been. In the 1980s and 90s, teams attempted far fewer threes. Defenses could pack the paint, help defenders could stay much closer to the basket. Modern offenses completely changed the geometry of the floor. Today, teams often have 5 shooters on the court simultaneously, with deep shooting range extending several feet beyond the arc. Defenders must cover dramatically more space than any previous generation. Freedom of movement rules also changed everything. The NBA steadily restricted physical perimeter defense over the years. Defenders can no longer hand check the way they did in the 80s and 90s, redirect ball handlers with forearms, or hold cutters off the ball. Modern defenders must stay in front of elite athletes without using many of the physical tools previous generations relied on. Offenses are also smarter than ever. Modern sets use spread pick and rolls, Spain pick and rolls, double drag actions, ghost screens, 5-out spacing, and constant off-ball movement. Every possession is designed to force defenders into impossible choices. One mistake creates an open 3 worth, significantly more than a contested mid-range from an earlier era. Tracking data shows modern NBA players cover enormous distances during games because offenses force constant defensive rotations. A center today might defend 5 different player types in a single quarter. That rarely happened decades ago. Modern teams also employ switch schemes, zone variations, matchup zones, hybrid coverages, ice coverage, drop coverage, blitzes, and hedge and recover systems. The average defensive game plan is significantly more complex than it was in any previous era. If nobody played defense, elite defensive teams wouldn't consistently win, defensive specialists wouldn't earn major contracts, and defensive player of the year candidates wouldn't dramatically impact winning. Yet year after year, the best defensive teams remain championship contenders. The score is higher. That doesn't mean the defense is worse. It means offense evolved faster than the box score can properly explain. Bubble ring is fraud. The Mickey Mouse ring nickname suggests the Lakers had an easier path than normal champions. The evidence doesn't support that. Every playoff team in the 2020 bubble lived in the same environment, followed the same rules, played on the same courts, had the same lack of travel, and had the same lack of fans. If the bubble made winning easier, it made it easier for everyone equally. The Lakers also lost one of their biggest advantages. They earned the Western Conference's top seed during the regular season, which normally would have provided home crowds, familiar routines, and travel benefits. Instead, all games were played on neutral courts. One of their primary competitive edges was removed entirely. The bubble was also mentally brutal. Players dealt with isolation from family, restricted movement, living inside a controlled environment for months, constant COVID concerns, and no normal social life. Multiple players publicly described the experience as emotionally draining and psychologically exhausting. LeBron himself called it mental warfare and emphasized the difficulty of maintaining championship focus while living in complete isolation for that length of time. Danny Green, who has 3 championship rings from 2014 with San Antonio, 2019 with Toronto, and 2020 with the Lakers, later said the bubble championship was the hardest championship run of his career, specifically because of the isolation and mental strain. The bubble also wasn't a weekend tournament. The NBA completed over 100 days of bubble operations while maintaining strict protocols. That's months inside a controlled environment. The Lakers were also already a dominant team before the shutdown. Before entering Orlando, they had the Western Conference's best record, championship expectations, one of the league's best defenses, and LeBron James and Anthony Davis both playing at all-NBA levels. The bubble didn't create a contender. It just determined which contender won. A fair argument is that the bubble was different. A factual argument is not that it was easier. Several players found it mentally harder than a traditional playoff run. Unusual doesn't automatically mean easier, and the evidence actually points in the opposite direction for many who experienced it. Reggie destroyed Knicks. When people think of Reggie Miller versus the Knicks, they usually think of the 1994 choke gesture toward Spike Lee, the 1995 8 points in 9 seconds, Madison Square Garden, crowd reactions, and Reggie celebrating in New York. Those moments became so famous that they completely overshadowed what actually happened in many of the series. The highlights survived longer than the result. During the core years of the rivalry, the Knicks and Pacers met repeatedly in the playoffs, and the Knicks actually beat Reggie multiple times. In 1993, the Knicks beat Indiana in the first round. In 1994, the Knicks beat Indiana again in the Eastern Conference Final. That was arguably the biggest series of the rivalry. After Miller's legendary 25-point fourth quarter in Game 5 in the famous Spike Lee confrontation, many fans remember the Pacers taking a 3-2 lead. What gets forgotten is what happened next. The Knicks won Games 6 and 7 and advanced to the NBA Finals. In 1995, Indiana won in 7 games, producing the 8 points in 9 seconds moment. In 1998, Indiana eliminated New York in 5 games. Then in 1999, the Knicks got revenge. As an 8th seed, New York beat Indiana in 6 games and reached the NBA Finals. From 1993 through 2000, the teams met 6 times in the playoffs and split those meetings 3-3 overall. That's not domination, that's a balanced rivalry. Patrick Ewing also gets forgotten constantly. In the decisive Game 7 of the 1994 Eastern Conference Finals, Ewing posted 24 points, 22 rebounds, 7 assists, and 5 blocks. He delivered one of the greatest games of his career to eliminate Indiana. Yet that performance rarely comes up because Miller's Game 5 was more memorable. The lie isn't that Reggie tortured Knicks fans. He absolutely did, and he thrived in that villain role The lie is pretending the Knicks were helpless victims when they won some of the rivalry's biggest and most important battles. Rodman didn't care. The public version of Dennis Rodman became dyed hair, tattoos, Vegas trips, nightclubs, celebrity relationships, and chaos. The basketball reality was completely different. Rodman wasn't just athletic, he was obsessive. Former teammates, coaches, and opponents have repeatedly described how much time he spent studying rebounding angles, shot trajectories, and individual player tendencies. He tracked which side of the rim specific players missed on, how hard certain players shot, whether misses tended to go long or short, how different rotations affected bounces, and how certain arenas influenced the way balls came off the rim. Instead of reacting after the shot, Rodman often moved before everyone else because he already knew the most likely rebound location. That's not effort, that's preparation. His numbers reflect it. He led the NBA in rebounding 7 straight seasons, one of the longest such streaks in league history. And he did it while being significantly smaller than traditional centers. He was regularly competing against 7-footers and elite post players with major size advantages. You don't win 7 consecutive rebounding titles on pure energy. That requires technique, preparation, and obsessive study. Rodman also understood possession value in a way most players of his era didn't. A rebound isn't just a rebound, it's an extra possession. An extra possession creates another shot. He built his entire career around maximizing possession, which was incredibly advanced thinking for the 1980s and 90s. His defensive resume backs it up too. 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards, multiple first-team all-defense selections, and the ability to guard centers, power forwards, wings, and guards and switches. That versatility requires elite basketball intelligence, not random energy. Phil Jackson coached Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Shaq, and Kobe Bryant, and he repeatedly praised Rodman's understanding of the game. Coaches don't trust players in championship situations because they're entertaining. They trust them because they understand winning basketball. The tattoos and hair colors became the story. The film study, preparation, and basketball intelligence became the forgotten part. Rodman wasn't running around on instinct. He was running a science project. CP3 is a choker. Chris Paul never won a championship. That's true. What's not true is that didn't win a title automatically means he played poorly in big moments. Those aren't the same statement. And when you actually examine Paul's playoff career, the evidence points far more toward devastating injury luck than consistent postseason failure. His playoff averages across nearly 2 decades include elite assist-to-turnover ratios, strong efficiency, excellent clutch scoring, and consistently positive on-court impact. His reputation gets judged by team outcomes rather than individual performance. The injury history is staggering and almost always left out of the conversation. In 2015, Paul suffered a hamstring injury during the playoffs after helping eliminate the defending champion Spurs. The Clippers blew a 3-1 lead to Houston while Paul was compromised, and Blake Griffin was also dealing with injury issues. In 2016 against Portland, he broke his hand in Game 4, and his season immediately ended. Blake Griffin was also lost. That wasn't a choking story, that was a catastrophic injury story. Then there's 2018, the biggest example. Paul and the Rockets led the Warriors 3-2 in the Western Conference Finals. He had just dominated Game 5. Then he suffered a hamstring injury and missed Games 6 and 7. Houston lost both games, and the Rockets missed 27 consecutive threes in Game 7. Houston had won 65 games, finished with the league's best record, and took the Kevin Durant Warriors to 7 games. Many analysts believe Houston had a legitimate chance to win the championship if Paul stayed healthy. That injury changed his entire legacy. His clutch resumes also includes a 2015 Game 7 against San Antonio, where, despite a hamstring injury, he hit a game winner over Tim Duncan with 1 second remaining to eliminate the defending champion. He led Phoenix to the 2021 Western Conference title in their first finals appearance since 1993, averaging over 20 points and 8 assists throughout the postseason. Chris Paul is one of the greatest playoff performers ever, whose championship opportunities were repeatedly disrupted by the worst possible injury timing. Pippen is a sidekick. Nobody's arguing Jordan wasn't the best player on the Bulls. The lie is pretending Pippen was just a passenger, and the 1993 to 1994 season destroys that argument completely. After the 1992 to 1993 championship, Jordan retired from basketball. Many expected Chicago to collapse. Instead, they won 55 games and remained a legitimate contender. Pippen averaged 22 points, 8.7 rebounds, 5.6 assists, and 2.9 steals per game as the team's primary scorer, playmaker, defender, and leader. He finished third in MVP voting that season behind only Hakeem Olajuwon and David Robinson, ahead of numerous future Hall of Famers. Players don't finish third in MVP voting by accident. The Bulls had won 57 games the previous season with Jordan. Without Jordan, they won 55. They lost 2 wins. That does not happen if the remaining star is merely a role player. Pippen's defensive impact was equally historic. He could legitimately defend point guards, shooting guards, small forwards, and power forwards. His combination of length, anticipation, and mobility helped redefine perimeter defense, and many modern wing defenders essentially follow the blueprint he helped establish. Pippen functioned like a modern positionless superstar wing decades before the league fully evolved in that direction. He could initiate offense, run fast breaks, guard multiple positions, rebound, and create shots for teammates, all in the same game. Jordan himself repeatedly referred to Pippen as his greatest teammate and credited him with helping transform the Bulls from a good team into a dynasty. The 6 championships actually hurt Pippen's individual reputation. Winning beside Jordan caused many fans to view him exclusively through the lens of Jordan's success, rather than his own. Had he spent his prime as the lone star of another franchise, the conversation around him would be completely different. The factual reality is that Scottie Pippen was a legitimate MVP-level superstar who happened to play alongside the greatest player ever, and one season without Jordan proved it beyond any reasonable doubt. Zion Williamson. Zion came into the league like a comet, drafted first overall in 2019 with talk that he might be the next LeBron. The Pelicans thought they'd found their franchise guy, but fast forward a few years, and it's been a string of setbacks that just won't quit. He missed the start of his rookie year with a meniscus tear and only debuted in January, then somehow still made the all-rookie first team. Sounds impressive, until the injuries kept piling up. In the 2021 offseason, he broke his right foot and missed that entire year. In 2022, he hurt his hamstring and played just 29 games. The next season, he hit a career high of 70 games, then pulled his hamstring again right before the playoffs. The Pelicans made it, but Zion didn't play a second. This season, he started strong, missed over 20 games early on, got suspended for missing a flight, then managed 2 triple-doubles before a back injury ended it all at 30 games. And even with his monster numbers, over 24 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, he still missed half of all possible games in 5 seasons. Between injuries, weight issues, and 0 playoff appearances, the league's most explosive talent turned into the most frustrating story. Andrew Wiggins, coming out of Kansas, he was hyped like crazy. People were already talking about him as the next face of the league, and the hype only grew when he was taken first overall in the 2014 draft. He had the athleticism, the scoring flashes, and even real defense upside. After getting traded to the Timberwolves, before ever playing a game for Cleveland, he hit the ground running, winning Rookie of the Year and playing all 82 games. Then he dropped over 23 points per game in his 3rd season, and the buzz started again. But that was as loud as it got. In Minnesota, he was always in that 17 to 20 point range, never really improving, just floating. He got the minutes, the chances, but never really led. So in 2020, the Timberwolves traded him to Golden State. He wasn't a bust, but he wasn't that guy either. In Golden State, he played a key support role during their 2022 title run, even got one All-Star nod. Still, he never became the offensive leader or franchise identity he was supposed to be. By 2025, he was with Miami, and while he had a small scoring bump, there was still no sign of consistent leadership. After more than 760 regular season games, he's had solid stats, but never became a generational cornerstone. The promise? Unreal. The delivery? Just not enough. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to be posting every day. Thanks. Anyways, Lonzo Ball. Picked 2nd overall in 2017 by the Lakers, Lonzo came in with sky-high expectations. At 6'6", with elite court vision and standout defense, he was labeled the franchise's new face before he even played a full month. His rookie stats weren't bad. Over 10 points, 7 assists, and nearly 7 boards a game. But the shooting? Brutal. Just over 30% from deep and 36% from the field, with a weird shooting form that had to be completely rebuilt. And the injury started early. Shoulder, ankle, knee, you name it, limiting him to 52 and then 47 games his first 2 years. Traded to New Orleans in the Anthony Davis deal, he improved. His shot got better, topping 37% from 3 and posting a career best 14.6 points in 2021. But the injuries never stopped, and the upward trend stalled. Then came the move to Chicago. His first year there, promising. He was efficient, defended well, and looked like he might finally break through. Then it happened. Severe left knee damage that wiped out the next 2 seasons. Over 1,000 days, gone. He came back in 2024, played 35 games, then went down again with a wrist injury. Despite flashes of potential and rare passing talent, Lonzo's career has become a cautionary tale. No consistent playoff impact, constant setbacks, and a stat line that doesn't match the hype. From future star to permanent rehab watch, it's been tough to watch. James Wiseman, coming into the league, he looked like a prototype built in a lab. 7 feet tall, 7'6" wingspan, and scouts were drooling over the combination of size, mobility, and raw talent. Golden State took him 2nd overall in the 2020 draft, expecting a franchise-changing big. But from the start, everything about his development just felt off. He only played 3 college games before jumping to the NBA, so the learning curve was steep from day one. His rookie debut showed flashes. He scored 19 in his first game, then dropped 25 about a month later. But in April, he tore his right meniscus, ending the season. Then he missed all of the next year, while the Warriors won a championship without him. When he came back in 2022, he couldn't stay in the rotation and spent time bouncing back and forth from the G League. By 2023, he was traded to Detroit, where his production was decent in short bursts, but it never stuck. The next season was quieter, and by the time he signed with Indiana in 2024, he tore his Achilles in the opener, gone before it started. He was traded to Toronto, then waived 2 days later. After 148 games, his averages are underwhelming. His numbers, his impact, even his availability, they've all trended the wrong direction. A case of potential never translating, and another reminder how brutal the league can be. Dennis Smith Jr., he came into the league looking like a human highlight reel waiting to happen. 9th overall pick in 2017, explosive, flashy, and coming off a big freshman year at NC State. He was supposed to be Dallas's new engine, a scoring, playmaking point guard with bounce for days. His rookie year backed it up too. Over 15 points and 5 assists per game, a couple of triple-doubles, and all rookie honors. It looked like the Mavericks had something real, but injuries showed up early and never really left. Hips, knees, ankles, wrists, you name it. Then Dallas landed Luka Doncic the next year, and just like that, Smith's role disappeared. He got traded to the Knicks, and while he had a few flashes, like a 31-point night, things quickly fell apart. His minutes dropped, his scoring dipped, and his shooting became a serious issue. He even had a G League stint and couldn't bounce back from it. From there, it was stop after stop. Detroit, Portland, Charlotte, Brooklyn. His averages hovered around 6 to 9 points per game, and the explosiveness that once set him apart kept fading. By early 2025, he was waived by Brooklyn and ended up signing with Real Madrid, not as a star, just depth. Over 326 NBA games, Smith averaged under 10 points per game. The injuries, the lack of consistent shooting, and his inability to evolve cost him big. Another prospect with top-tier athleticism who never made the league, Ben Simmons. Drafted 1st overall in 2016 after a hyped year at LSU, Simmons was supposed to be the next big thing. At 6'10" with elite passing and defense, he looked like a prototype for the future. But it didn't take long for things to go sideways. He broke his right foot before ever playing and sat out his entire rookie year. When he finally debuted, he won Rookie of the Year, made 3 All-Star teams, and even snagged all defensive first-team honors. But the shooting, it never came. In the 2021 playoffs, he went 15 for 45 from the line and practically vanished in crunch time. That collapse against the Hawks broke any remaining trust. After that, everything spiraled. He refused to play, skipped team mental health resources, racked up over $10 million in fines, and demanded a trade. When the Sixers finally moved him to Brooklyn for James Harden, fans hoped for a reset. Instead, they got more injuries. Simmons played only 90 games in 3 seasons, and his scoring, rebounding, and assists hit career lows. The lowest point, scoring just 2 points against Philly, while looking completely checked out. After getting waived in 2025, he joined the Clippers, barely cracking 3 points a game in a limited role. From future franchise star to afterthought, Simmons' career didn't just fizzle, it unraveled publicly, becoming one of the most high-profile examples of unfulfilled talent in recent memory. Justice Winslow, drafted 10th overall in 2015 after helping Duke win a national title, Winslow looked like the full package. He had size, elite defense, playmaking instincts, and that two-way potential everyone dreams about. His rookie season showed promise. He made the all-rookie second team while guarding top wings and logging solid minutes. But right after that, the injuries came like clockwork. Shoulder surgery in 2017 was just the beginning. He dealt with knee strains, hip trouble, back pain, thigh bruises, concussions, ankle sprains, an Achilles tear, and even a bone marrow procedure. By the end of 2023, he needed season-ending ankle surgery and had played just 267 games in 8 years. That's less than 40 per season outside his rookie year. Offensively, he never broke through. His jumper stayed streaky. He struggled to score one-on-one, and his averages, 8 points, 5 rebounds, under 3 assists, barely moved the needle. Analysts pointed out how rough his off-the-dribble pull-ups looked, and they weren't wrong. There were moments, like 12 points per game in 2019 with Miami, or solid defensive stretches, but they didn't last. He bounced from Memphis to Los Angeles to Portland, then ended up with the Raptors G League team, and finally, the Wisconsin Herd. What started as a potential star arc turned into a string of setbacks, fading roles, and constant rehab. Winslow's story is a reminder. Talent can only go so far when your body refuses to cooperate. Penny Hardaway. In the early 90s, he looked like the NBA's future. At 6'7" with court vision like a point guard and the frame of a wing, Penny was a matchup nightmare and an instant sensation. Drafted 3rd overall in 1993, traded to Orlando, and paired with Shaquille O'Neal, he quickly made headlines. By his second year, he was averaging over 20 points and 7 assists, making the All-NBA first team and leading the Magic to the finals. He even finished 3rd in voting in 1996. 4 All-Star selections and 2 first-team honors in his first few years made it feel like the league had its next icon. But then the injuries started. First came the knee problems in the 1997 playoffs, and things went downhill fast. A microfracture surgery in 2000 changed everything. He admitted it took away his explosiveness completely. That signature quickness, agility, and versatility just never came back. From that point, it was a string of limited roles. Stops in Phoenix, New York, Miami. Minutes and scoring dropped. He never averaged 10 points again after those prime years. Across 14 seasons, he played just over 700 games. His averages, 15 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds, look solid, but the drop-off was steep. Once considered a possible successor to Michael Jordan, Penny became one of the league's biggest what-if stories. A career that began like a rocket, cut short before its true peak could even begin. Jimmer Fredette. After torching college basketball in 2011 and winning every award short of a Nobel Prize, Jimmer entered the NBA with full-blown Jimmermania. Drafted 10th overall and quickly shipped to Sacramento, he was supposed to be the next Steph Curry, lights-out shooting, ridiculous range, and a scoring machine. But the NBA version never quite showed up. Over 6 seasons and 241 games, he averaged just 6 points a game, barely registered assists or rebounds, and only started 7 times. Defensively, he was a turnstile, and without the ball in his hands, he couldn't do much. Teams cycled through him. Sacramento, Chicago, New Orleans, New York, and later a brief blip with Phoenix. But his role kept shrinking until the league just moved on. Meanwhile, in China, Jimmer exploded. He averaged over 37 points per game with the Shanghai Sharks, dropped 73 in a single night, won MVP honors, and made 3 All-Star appearances. But instead of reviving his image, the overseas dominance just made his NBA flop feel bigger. He also had success in Greece and made a strong transition to Team USA's 3-on-3 squad at the 2024 Olympics. He retired in 2025 with a new executive role, but the NBA story never changed. For all the hype, he never became the face of anything except unrealized potential, showing just how different pro success is from college glory. Markelle Fultz. Coming out of Washington, he looked like the total package. 6'4", crafty with the ball, a 3-level scorer, and flat-out dominant in college. The Sixers took him 1st overall in 2017, ready to pair him with their young core and crown him as the next phase of the process. But then came the shoulder, or more accurately, the mystery of the shoulder. He played just 4 games his rookie year before being shut down. His jump shot looked broken, like genuinely unrecognizable. No 3-point attempts, awkward mechanics, and nobody could agree on the actual diagnosis. Turns out it was thoracic outlet syndrome, a rare condition that wrecked his shooting form. He returned late that year and even notched a triple-double at 19 years old. But the damage was done. The following season, he lost his starting spot after 15 games and was traded to Orlando. There, he had a brief resurgence, 12 points and 5 assists in 2020, but tore his ACL in January 2021. That erased another full season. His best numbers came in 2022 with the Magic, but it never felt like he was close to regaining that pre-draft dominance. Then came Sacramento in 2025, where he played just 21 games off the bench, averaging under 3 points per game. After 255 total games, he's averaged just over 10 points per contest. From top pick to bench filler, Fultz became a reminder that sometimes potential can vanish before it ever fully arrives. Ricky Rubio, drafted 5th overall in 2009 with sky-high expectations. Rubio was supposed to be the next great European floor general. He had dazzling vision, creative passing, and the kind of instincts that made scouts fall in love. When he finally debuted in 2011, he looked the part. Over 10 points, 8 assists, and 2 steals a game before a brutal ACL and LCL tear ended his rookie year. That injury ended up shaping his entire career. Across 12 seasons, Rubio put up solid numbers, over 7,500 points and more than 5,000 assists. But his scoring just never clicked. He hovered around 38% from the field and barely cracked 32% from deep, which is not great for a guard. Defenders routinely gave him space, daring him to shoot, and most of the time, he missed. Even as a pick-and-roll creator, he ranked last in one analysis for turning the ball over when not passing. He had moments, triple-doubles, flashy assist games, and a memorable playoff run with Utah in 2018, but consistency never followed. Ankle and knee injuries piled up, and by 2023, he stepped away to focus on his mental health. He retired in 2025, returning to his original club in Spain. Rubio's passing was special, no question, but the shooting woes, injuries, and lack of offensive takeover left him far from the franchise centerpiece people once imagined. Michael Carter-Williams. His rookie year was a dream start. Drafted 11th overall in 2013, he lit up the league with near triple-double averages, over 16 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, almost 2 steals, and even dropped 9 steals in his debut. He won Rookie of the Year and looked like the next big two-way guard for Philly, but the drop-off came fast. After shoulder surgery in the offseason, he missed the start of year 2. Then came a trade to Milwaukee, where a torn hip labrum cut that season short too. From there, it was a carousel of setbacks. Tendinitis, foot pain, ankle issues, and more surgeries. The numbers reflected it. His minutes got sliced in half. His scoring fell into single digits. Shooting percentages kept sinking, and that jumper never developed. From 34 minutes a game as a rookie to barely seeing the court in his late 20s. Over stints with 9 teams, Philly, Milwaukee, Chicago, Charlotte, Houston, Orlando, he could never reclaim that early form. His final averages, around 10 points, 4 assists, and 4 rebounds over 395 games. In the playoffs, just 16 games, under 8 points per contest, and nothing that shifted any series. It was a case of early promise, buried under constant injuries, declining roles, and inconsistent play. A Rookie of the Year who looked like a future leader, but instead became another reminder how fast potential can vanish in the league. Emmanuel Mudiay, drafted 7th overall in 2015, Mudiay entered the league with all the tools. 6'5", athletic, flashy passer, and a frame built for modern guards. After skipping college to play in China, the hype was real, even if an ankle injury over there kept him to just 10 games. When he hit the NBA, he showed some spark. His rookie year in Denver had moments. A buzzer beater from deep, a 30-point game, and he earned all-rookie second team. But the cracks were already there. Shooting below 37% from the field and barely over 30 from 3, he couldn't stay efficient. Injuries kept piling up, especially in his ankles and back, and he lost his starting job by year 2. The Nuggets moved on. In New York, he had a solid stretch, nearly 15 points a game in 2018, but that didn't last either. A sprained ankle and shoulder problems derailed that flash. He signed with Utah after that, but his role shrunk fast, just over 7 points and 2 assists a game in limited minutes. After that, G League, a 10-day contract in Sacramento, overseas leagues, and eventually Puerto Rico, where he won BSN MVPs in 2025. But by then, his NBA chapter had long closed. Mudiay had the raw ability, size, and athleticism, but the shot never came together. Injuries kept resetting his growth, and he never found consistent footing. From top-tier prospect to what could have been, his name's now a cautionary footnote. Austin Rivers. Coming out of Duke and taken 10th overall in 2012, he had all the markers: NBA bloodline, scoring instincts, and playmaking promise. The narrative was set. Coach's son with high IQ, ready to lead a franchise. But that never happened. His rookie season with New Orleans was underwhelming, averaging just over 6 points and 2 assists, while shooting under 38% from the field. Injuries piled on, ankle bone spurs, a fractured hand, and the season ended early. Things picked up a bit with the Clippers, especially in 2017. He started nearly 60 games, hit a career-high 15 points per game, and shot better from deep. But even that stretch got interrupted by an Achilles strain, and when the roster was healthy, he faded back behind other guards. The flashes were there, but never sustained. After LA, he bounced around. Washington, Houston, New York, Denver, Minnesota. the numbers floated between 7 to 9 points per game, and his playmaking stayed around 2 assists. Defensively, he held his own better than most undersized guards, but it wasn't enough to offset the shooting inconsistency and lack of floor control. Across 707 games, Rivers averaged just under 9 points and 2 assists. In 64 playoff appearances, he scored just over 7 points per game. No signature runs, no breakout series. While he had moments, the full picture tells a different story. From potential franchise centerpiece to solid rotation guy, Rivers became a long-tenured example of the gap between hype and reality. Josh Jackson. Coming out of Kansas, Jackson was the guy. #1 high school recruit, All-American and Big 12 Freshman of the Year. At 6'8", with bounce, defense, and a strong motor, scouts loved his potential as a two-way star. Drafted 4th overall in 2017 by the Suns, he was expected to be a franchise cornerstone. His rookie season wasn't bad. 13 points, almost 5 boards, a steal per game, and all-rookie second-team honors. But that was the peak. By year 2, the numbers dipped. 11 points per game, slightly better from deep, but he still shot under 42% overall. And that jumper, it never really improved. Meanwhile, Devin Booker took off and Jackson faded fast. He racked up technical fouls, struggled to stay consistent, and the Suns gave up. Traded to Memphis in 2019, he barely played. 22 games. In Detroit, he briefly looked like he was turning it around with over 13 points per game, but by the next season, he dropped to 7. From there, the story didn't change. Across 291 NBA games, Jackson averaged just over 11 points, 4 rebounds, and never found his niche. No major injuries, just a stalled game, poor shooting, constant team shifts, and no clear role. He was passed over by stars, taken later in his draft, and became another example of potential that never cashed out. A high IQ, high hype player who simply never delivered. Brandon Roy, drafted 6th overall in 2006, then sent to Portland. He looked like the league's next big star right out of the gate. Rookie of the year with nearly 17 points per game, and that was while missing over 20 games due to a heel injury. By year 2, he was an all-star. Year 3, over 22 points per game and a spot on the All-NBA team. He was the heart of a rising Trailblazers team, calm under pressure and explosive when it counted. Everything pointed to a long, superstar career. Then his knees gave out. Not just a tweak or a sprain, his cartilage was deteriorating. Bone-on-bone kind of damage. He had multiple surgeries across 2 years, trying to keep things going. But by December 2011, he was only 27 and had to call it quits. That early, he tried coming back with Minnesota the next season, but only lasted 5 games before another procedure ended it all again. In total, Roy played just 326 regular season games and only 15 in the playoffs. His 26-point scoring outbursts in 2009 postseason games faded to under 10 points by the end. He didn't just slow down, he disappeared from the game far too soon. Roy had the talent, the leadership, and the momentum to be the face of the league. But when the knees failed, the dream went with them. One of the most heartbreaking what-if cases in modern NBA history. Scoot Henderson, taken 3rd overall. In 2023, Scoot arrived with all the hype. Elite athlete, explosive first step, high-level playmaker, and billed as the guy who could carry the torch post Lillard in Portland. He had 2 years in the G League Ignite, and the comparisons to Victor Wembanyama weren't just noise. They were baked into his expectations. But 2 seasons in, the reality hasn't matched the promise. As a rookie, he played 62 games, started 32, and averaged 14 points and 5 assists, but shot under 39% from the field and just 32% from deep. Turnovers piled up, and adjusting to the NBA pace clearly threw him off. Year 2 didn't bring the leap. His numbers dipped, 12.7 points, 5 assists, shooting barely above 41%, only 10 starts in 66 games. As his role shrank behind Anthony Simons, Shaedon Sharpe, Grant, his few standout performances, like the 39-point night against Brooklyn, were followed by lows, like the record-setting -58 game against Miami. He missed time with a sprained ankle as a rookie, then closed his sophomore year sidelined again with a concussion. For someone once seen as a franchise savior, the production's been underwhelming. His flashes show promise, but the consistency, shooting, and team impact haven't come together. Scoot's journey so far looks less like a future face of the NBA and more like a tough lesson in just how hard it is to meet the hype. Although it's still possible for him. Tyreke Evans. When he was drafted 4th overall in 2009, the hype was loud. A 6'6" combo guard with size, skill, and the kind of rookie production you rarely see. Over 20 points, nearly 6 assists and 5 rebounds per game, and Rookie of the Year honors. He joined a short list of players to average 25.5 as a rookie, and the comparisons came in fast. LeBron, Harden, even some whispered next face of the league chatter, but it didn't hold. After that breakout season, his scoring and impact steadily dropped. By the time he joined New Orleans, he was averaging just under 15 points. The efficiency was never there. Career field goal at 44%. Three-point shooting around 32%. He bounced between starting and bench roles, never locking in long-term with any franchise. Injuries didn't help. Plantar fasciitis, knee surgery, rib problems, ankle tweaks. Year after year, something kept him off the floor. In 2019, he got hit with a major setback, a league suspension for violating the anti-drug policy. That knocked him out of the league for multiple years, completely killing whatever momentum he had left. He returned in 2022, but the spark was long gone. Across 11 NBA seasons, Evans averaged nearly 16 points and 5 assists, but never reached that next tier. From rookie sensation to rotational piece, his career serves as a prime example of how fast potential can slip when injuries, inconsistency, and off-court trouble mix together. Jordan Hill, drafted 8th overall in 2009 by the Knicks. Right in between Curry and DeMar, Hill came out of Arizona with big numbers and bigger expectations. He just averaged 18 points and 11 rebounds, shot nearly 58%, and was supposed to bring a relentless motor, athleticism, and shot-blocking presence to the league. But his time in New York didn't last long. He was traded mid-rookie year to Houston, where he barely cracked 4 points and 2 boards per game. That set the tone. Over 8 NBA seasons, Hill played in just over 400 games and averaged under 8 points and 6 rebounds in less than 19 minutes a night. He had his best stretch with the Lakers between 2013 and 2015, even posting 12 points and nearly 8 boards a game at one point, but he never took that next step. His game lacked a three-point shot entirely, literally 0 career makes, and his defense never became the reliable asset teams hoped for. Injuries, especially hip issues, slowed him down, and his role kept shrinking with each move. After short stints in Indiana and Minnesota, he was out of the league by 2017, playing just 7 games in his final season. He never started a playoff game and never anchored a team. What started as a promising college to pro leap ended in quiet exits and unmet projections. Hill had the tools, but never quite put them together in a way that led to anything close to franchise-level impact. Jabari Parker, drafted 2nd overall in 2014, he came into Milwaukee with sky-high expectations. After a dominant year at Duke, people were calling him a future franchise player with the kind of polished scoring and rebounding you just don't see from most rookies. And for the first 25 games, it looked like the hype was real, over 12 points and 5 rebounds per game. But then came the first ACL tear, left knee, December, season over. He rehabbed, came back strong, and by 2017, he was averaging 20 points per game. Then, disaster again. Same knee, same tear. 2 ACL surgeries by age 22. That's a brutal hit to any player, let alone someone whose game leaned on athleticism and quickness. He returned, but it wasn't the same. In 2018, he played just 31 games and started only 3 of them. From there, it was a carousel. Chicago, Washington, Atlanta, Sacramento, Boston. He'd show flashes, dropping double figures off the bench, but never carved out a lasting role. By 2022, he was out of the league. At 29, he'd shifted to Europe, first Barcelona, then Partizan, but it felt more like a new chapter than a revival of the old one. Parker's raw talent was undeniable, but between devastating knee injuries, role instability, and inconsistent production, he never became the dependable franchise star so many projected. His story stands as one of the toughest examples of elite potential lost to injury and instability. Johnny Flynn, drafted 6th overall in 2009 after lighting up Syracuse and dropping 34 points in that legendary 6 overtime battle against UConn, Flynn came in hot. He was quick, creative, and confident. Exactly what Minnesota thought they needed at point guard. His rookie season looked solid on paper. 13.5 points, 4.5 assists, and 81 starts. But that's where the momentum ended. He had hip surgery in the summer of 2010, and everything changed. In his second season, the numbers dropped hard. Just 5 points a game and barely over 3 assists in 53 appearances. Suddenly, the explosiveness was gone. He got traded to Houston, then to Portland, but never regained that rookie rhythm. His efficiency tanked, under 40% from the field and around 30% from deep, and he ended up playing only 163 NBA games. After that, it was a quick exit to international stops in Australia and Italy. By 2014, he was done with top-level pro ball Injuries crushed his development window, and he never carved out a lasting role. Once compared to Damon Stoudemire and seen as a potential franchise guard, Flynn's arc became the exact opposite. He flashed promise, but his NBA career ended almost as quickly as it began. Another reminder that college brilliance doesn't always translate, especially when health pulls the rug out early. Whiteside, picked 33rd overall in 2010, his early NBA years were forgettable. He bounced between the G League and overseas until 2014 when Miami gave him a shot, and he made the most of it. Suddenly he was everywhere, blocking everything, grabbing every rebound, and putting up box score numbers that made people pay attention. 11 points, 10 rebounds, nearly 4 blocks per game, just a few years after barely holding on to a roster spot. By 2016, he was leading the league in blocks and earning all defensive honors. The next season, he led the league in rebounds, 17 points, and over 14 boards per game. Miami rewarded him with a massive contract, and it looked like they'd found their long-term defensive anchor. But the numbers didn't tell the whole story. Whiteside struggled with pick-and-roll defense, lacked mobility, and didn't fit the evolving, space-heavy league. His stats looked great, but teams didn't trust him late in games. Critics called it empty calories. Big numbers without big impact. He got traded to Portland, then bounced to Sacramento and Utah. His minutes dropped, his role shrank. By 2021, he was barely averaging 8 points and 6 rebounds in under 16 minutes per game. In 511 games, he averaged solid stats: 12 points, nearly 11 rebounds, over 2 blocks. But the playoff resume? Only 26 games, mostly forgettable. Whiteside's career became the tale of a big man with big numbers who never truly shaped winning teams or lived up to the idea of being a franchise cornerstone. Josh Selby, once the #1 high school recruit in 2010, Selby entered the NBA with hype that outpaced his draft slot. He'd only played 1 year at Kansas, delayed by a suspension and shortened by injury, but still showed enough athleticism and scoring flashes to get attention. Memphis took him 49th overall in 2011, and then came Summer League, where he shared MVP honors with Damian Lillard. That raised eyebrows, but once the regular season hit, all the momentum vanished. In 2 years with the Grizzlies, he averaged just over 2 points a game, less than 1 assist, and shot a painful 33% from the field, 14% from 3. He never started a game, never carved a role, and spent most of his time bouncing between D-League assignments. Even in the G League, he flashed here and there, but never broke through. By early 2013, he was waived. And that was basically it for his NBA career. What followed was a long global tour: China, Israel, South Korea, Argentina, Lithuania, where he played for paycheck and opportunity, not prestige. Scouts had concerns early on about decision-making, shaky shooting, and maturity. Unfortunately, all of it showed. Selby had raw talent and bounce, but no development arc. From top prospect to near invisible NBA presence, his journey became yet another reminder that early hype doesn't guarantee anything when the lights turn on. Kevin Knox, drafted 9th overall in 2018, he came out of Kentucky as a 6'8" wing with smooth shooting mechanics, size, and flashes of versatility. The Knicks saw him as a potential centerpiece, a long-term scoring option who could stretch the floor and finish at the rim. His rookie season seemed promising on paper: nearly 13 points and over 4 rebounds per game across 57 starts. But then the problems started showing. Despite the usage, his advanced metrics were brutal. He ranked near the bottom of qualified players in almost every category. Over the next few seasons, his numbers dropped fast: 6 points per game in year 2, under 4 by year 4. The shooting never stabilized, with field goal percentages dipping into the low 30s and three-point shooting barely scraping average levels. His offense stalled out completely. In 2022, he was traded to Atlanta, but barely saw the floor. Then came Detroit, where he showed minor signs of life, and Portland, where he had a brief scoring bump before getting waived again. He spent time in the G League, where he actually played well, over 21 points and nearly 9 rebounds per game. But that just earned him 2 short deals and a playoff bench spot in Golden State. Across 320 NBA games, Knox has averaged just over 7 points, with no consistent role, no defensive impact, and no leadership presence. Drafted to be a franchise piece, he's instead become an example of raw talent that never turned into meaningful NBA production. 2017 Warriors. The 2017 Warriors completed the most dominant playoff run ever by finishing 16-1 after winning the championship. They opened the postseason with 15 straight victories, becoming the first team in league history to start a playoff run 15-0. They swept Portland, Utah, and San Antonio before reaching the finals. Those 3 Western opponents combined for 153 regular season wins. Golden State also defeated teams that combined for 188 regular season wins across the entire postseason. They finished with one of the best playoff point differentials ever at over plus 13 points per game, while leading the playoffs in offensive rating and producing one of the greatest net ratings ever. Steph Curry led the playoffs and made three-pointers and averaged over 28 points during the finals. Kevin Durant averaged 35.2 points, 8.2 rebounds, and 5.4 assists in the finals, while shooting over 55% from the field and over 47% from three. He won Finals Most Valuable Player unanimously. Draymond Green averaged nearly a triple-double against Utah while anchoring the defense throughout the postseason. They went 12-0 through the Western Conference and never lost a series. Cleveland entered the finals after going 12-1 through the Eastern Conference with LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Love, yet Golden State still won 4-1. The roster featured 4 All-NBA players in Curry, Durant, Green, and Klay Thompson, giving them unmatched versatility on both ends of the floor. Their famous Hamptons 5 lineup produced one of the best playoff net ratings ever and defined basketball history permanently. 2001 Lakers. The 2001 Lakers authored one of the greatest playoff runs ever by finishing 15-1 after winning the championship. Before 2017, that postseason held the record for playoff winning percentage by a champion. They opened the playoffs by sweeping Portland 3-0. Portland had won 50 regular season games, yet every loss came by double digits. Shaq averaged over 27 points during the series, while Kobe Bryant averaged over 25. Next came Sacramento, a 55-win team that was swept 4-0. Los Angeles controlled the paint throughout the matchup and won Game 4 by nearly 30 points. The Western Conference Finals matched them against San Antonio, which had won 58 games behind Most Valuable Player Tim Duncan and the league's top-ranked defense. Los Angeles swept the series anyway and won every game. Kobe averaged roughly 33 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists, while Shaq averaged over 27 points. The finals featured Philadelphia, which entered with league Most Valuable Player Allen Iverson, Defensive Player of the Year Dikembe, and Coach of the Year Larry Brown. Philadelphia handed Los Angeles its only playoff loss in overtime of Game 1. The Lakers responded by winning the next 4 games to secure the title. Shaq averaged 33.7 points, 15.8 rebounds, and 4.8 assists in the final, and earned Finals Most Valuable Player. Veteran contributors Derek Fisher, Rick Fox, Robert Horry, and Brian Shaw consistently delivered important minutes. Phil Jackson guided the roster with the triangle offense, creating elite spacing and balance around 2 unstoppable stars. Their 15-1 record stood as the standard afterward. 1983 Sixers. The 1983 Sixers delivered one of the greatest playoff runs ever by finishing 12-1 during a shorter postseason format. Their winning percentage of .923 still ranks among the best ever by a championship team. Before the playoffs even began, Moses Malone confidently predicted foe, expecting Philadelphia to sweep every series. They came incredibly close. The actual results became 4-0, 4-1, and 4-0, creating the famous faux fee faux phrase that remains part of NBA history. Philadelphia opened by sweeping a New York Knicks team led by Bernard King without ever losing control of the series. They then faced a Milwaukee Bucks team that won 51 regular season games and featured Sidney Moncrief and Bob Lanier. Milwaukee managed the Sixers' only playoff loss in Game 4, but Philadelphia immediately answered with a victory in Game 5 to close the series. The finals matched them against the Los Angeles Lakers, who had won 58 regular season games and featured Magic Johnson, Kareem, and James Worthy. Philadelphia swept the series 4-0, winning by margins of 2, 3, 14, and 8 points. Moses Malone averaged over 26 points and over 15 rebounds during the postseason while completely controlling the offensive glass. He earned Finals Most Valuable Player after creating countless second-chance opportunities. Julius Erving remained an elite scorer. Maurice Cheeks directed the offense. Andrew Toney provided perimeter scoring, and Bobby Jones anchored an outstanding defensive bench. The Sixers combined elite rebounding, efficient half-court offense, and outstanding defense throughout the playoff, losing only 1 game while sweeping the defending Western Conference champions, secured one of the most complete championship performances the league has ever seen. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to be posting every day. Thanks. Anyways, 1950 Lakers. The 1950 Minneapolis Lakers completed one of the most important championship runs in basketball history because they became the first champions after the Basketball Association of America and National Basketball League officially merged to form the NBA. The title also gave Minneapolis consecutive league championships after winning the final Basketball Association of America championship in 1949. Their playoff journey was unusually demanding, lasting 13 postseason games across just 34 days, while teams traveled almost entirely by train and regularly played back-to-back contests. Minneapolis finished the regular season with 51 wins and 17 losses, the best record in the Central Division. George Mikan remained the league's biggest star after averaging over 27 points per game during an era when most teams scored only in the 70s and 80s. Before the official bracket even began, the Lakers survived a Central Division tiebreaker against the Rochester Royals to secure the top seed. They then eliminated the Chicago Stags before defeating the Fort Wayne Pistons in the Central Division Final. Because of the league's three-division playoff format, Minneapolis still had to defeat the Anderson Packers in the NBA semifinal before reaching the championship series. The finals matched them against the Syracuse Nationals, and Minneapolis won the series 4-2. Bob Harrison secured the championship with a dramatic 40-foot buzzer beater in Game 6, creating one of the earliest title-clinching shots in league history. Mikan's dominance forced opposing teams to send multiple defenders into the paint, influencing future rule changes that widened the lane. Hall of Famers Jim Pollard, Vern Mickelson, and Slater Martin strengthened the roster, and the championship became the foundation of a dynasty that won 5 titles in 6 seasons. 1999 Spurs. The 1999 Spurs produced one of the greatest playoff runs ever by finishing 15-2 during the NBA's lockout-shortened season. The regular season lasted only 50 games after the lockout delayed opening night until February, yet San Antonio still posted the league's best record at 37-13. They also finished first in defensive rating and allowed the fewest points in the league. Tim Duncan and David Robinson formed the famous Twin Towers pairing, giving San Antonio unmatched size and rim protection. Duncan, only in his second NBA season, averaged over 23 points, more than 11 rebounds, nearly 3 blocks, and over 1 steal per game during the playoffs before earning Finals Most Valuable Player. The Spurs opened by defeating the Minnesota Timberwolves 3-1 before sweeping the Los Angeles Lakers 4-0. That Lakers team featured both Shaq and Kobe Bryant, making San Antonio the first team to sweep a Shaq-led Lakers playoff series. They then swept the Portland Trail Blazers, who had finished 35-15 with one of basketball's deepest rosters. The finals matched San Antonio against the 8th-seeded New York Knicks, the first 8th seed ever to reach the finals. The Spurs won the series 4-1, with Avery Johnson knocking down the championship clinching jumper during Game 5. San Antonio actually played more road games than home games throughout the postseason because every series ended away from home. They also won 12 consecutive playoff games, one of the longest postseason winning streaks ever at the time. Their elite defense, dominant rebounding, and interior presence carried them through every round, and the championship established the franchise as one of the NBA's defining dynasties of the modern era. 1991 Bulls. The 1991 Bulls completed one of the most important playoff runs in NBA history because it transformed years of frustration into the beginning of a dynasty. Chicago entered the postseason after winning 61 regular season games, the best record in franchise history at that point. They also finished first in offensive rating while ranking among the league's best defensive teams. Their playoff run began with a 3-game sweep of the New York Knicks before they defeated the Philadelphia 76ers 4-1. Everything built toward the Eastern Conference Finals against the Detroit Pistons. Detroit had eliminated Chicago in 1988, 1989, and 1990, while winning back-to-back championships. This time, the Bulls completely reversed the rivalry by sweeping the Pistons 4-0 and outscoring them by nearly 10 points per game. The series became even more memorable when several Detroit players, including Thomas and Bill Laimbeer, left the court before the final buzzer instead of taking part in the traditional handshake line. Chicago then faced the Los Angeles Lakers in the finals. The Lakers won Game 1, but the Bulls responded by winning the next 4 games to capture the franchise's first championship. Michael Jordan averaged 31.2 points, 6.6 rebounds, 11.4 assists, 2.8 steals, and 1.4 blocks during the finals, while shooting over 55% from the field. Scottie Pippen averaged over 21 points, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists in the series while spending long stretches guarding Magic Johnson. Horace Grant anchored the interior with rebounding and defense, while Phil Jackson's triangle offense reached another level. Chicago finished the playoffs 15-2, ended Detroit's reign in the Eastern Conference, and launched the first three-peat of the 1990s. 1989 Pistons. The 1989 Pistons completed one of the greatest defensive playoff runs in NBA history by finishing 15-2 on their way to the franchise's first championship. They defeated opponents that combined for more than 200 regular season wins while sweeping 3 different playoff series. Detroit also held opponents below 100 points in 12 of their 17 postseason games, showing how dominant their defense remained from the opening round through the final. They opened by sweeping the Boston Celtics 3-0, becoming the first team to eliminate Boston in an opening round sweep. Next came the Milwaukee Bucks, who had won 49 regular season games behind Sidney Moncrief, Terry Cummings, and Jack Sikma. Detroit swept that series as well, while controlling the glass and forcing consistent turnover. The Eastern Conference Finals brought a matchup with Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. Chicago pushed Detroit harder than any previous opponent, winning games 2 and 3, but the Pistons answered by taking the final 3 games to win the series 4-2. Their famous Jordan rules packed the paint with help defenders and forced the rest of Chicago's offense to beat them. The finals featured a rematch against the Los Angeles Lakers, who entered the championship series undefeated in the postseason after winning 11 straight playoff games. Detroit swept Los Angeles 4-0 and ended the Showtime dynasty's hopes of a 3rd consecutive championship. Joe DeMars averaged 27.3 points and 6 assists during the finals to earn Finals Most Valuable Player. Isaiah Thomas directed the offense with elite scoring and playmaking, while Dennis Rodman, the league's Defensive Player of the Year, defended nearly every position. Their balance, physicality, and relentless defense turned one of basketball's toughest teams into unforgettable champions. 1982 Lakers. The 1982 Lakers launched the Showtime dynasty by capturing the franchise's first championship under head coach Pat Riley, who had taken over during the season and immediately guided Los Angeles to the title. They finished the playoffs with a 12-2 record, one of the strongest postseason performances of that era's shorter playoff format. The run began against the Phoenix Suns, who had won 46 regular season games. Los Angeles defeated them 4-1 behind Magic Johnson's elite playmaking and Kareem's consistent scoring inside. The Western Conference Finals brought the San Antonio Spurs, a 48-win team led by George Gervin. The Lakers swept the series 4-0 while averaging well over 120 points per game, showing exactly why their fast-paced offense became known as Showtime. The finals matched them against a talented Philadelphia 76ers team, featuring Julius Erving, Andrew Toney, Maurice Cheeks, and Bobby Jones. Los Angeles won the championship 4-2 after Kareem suffered an ankle injury late in Game 5. That created one of the most memorable performances in finals history. Magic Johnson, normally the team's point guard, started at center in the championship, clinching Game 6, and finished with 42 points, 15 rebounds, and 7 assists. At just 22 years old, he became the youngest finals most valuable player in league history, a record that still stands. Kareem averaged over 20 points during the finals before the injury, while anchoring the paint on both ends of the floor. Magic nearly averaged a triple-double during the series and controlled the tempo from start to finish. The combination of elite passing, transition scoring, Hall of Fame talent, and disciplined defense turned this championship into the beginning of one of basketball's greatest dynasty. 1971 Bucks. The 1971 Bucks completed one of the fastest championship builds in NBA history by winning the title in only the franchise's 3rd season. Milwaukee finished the regular season with 66 wins and 16 losses, giving them the 2nd best record in league history at that time. They carried that dominance into the playoffs with a 12-2 record while producing one of the largest postseason point differentials of the era. Their opening series came against the San Francisco Warriors, who featured Hall of Famers Nate Thurmond and Jerry Lucas. Milwaukee won 4-1 behind Kareem, who averaged over 30 points during the series. The Western Division Finals brought an even greater challenge against the Los Angeles Lakers, who featured Jerry West, Wilt Chamberlain, and Gail Goodrich. Milwaukee still won the series 4-1, with Kareem consistently controlling the offense against Chamberlain. The finals matched the Bucks against the Baltimore Bullets. led by Wes Unseld, Earl Monroe, and Gus Johnson. Milwaukee swept the series 4-0 and won every game by at least 6 points. Kareem averaged over 27 points in the final and earned Finals Most Valuable Player after dominating both ends of the floor. He also captured the league's Most Valuable Player award during the regular season while averaging over 26 points and nearly 18 rebounds throughout the playoff. Oscar Robertson, acquired before the season in a blockbuster trade, brought elite playmaking and veteran leadership while finally winning the first championship of his Hall of Fame career. Milwaukee combined outstanding rebounding, efficient ball movement, dominant interior defense, and the league's best field goal percent, losing only 2 playoff games while defeating multiple Hall of Fame opponents, secured one of the most complete championship run basketball has ever seen. 2026 Knicks. The 2026 Knicks completed one of the greatest playoff runs in NBA history by finishing 16-3 while ending the franchise's 53-year championship drought. They entered the postseason as the 3rd seed in the Eastern Conference instead of the conference favorite, making the title run even more impressive. New York then won 13 consecutive playoff games, tying one of the longest postseason winning streaks ever before finally dropping Game 3 of the final. Their journey began with a 6-game victory over the Atlanta Hawks before eliminating the defending Eastern Conference champion Indiana Pacers. The Eastern Conference Finals brought the 67-win Cleveland Cavaliers, owners of the league's best regular season record. New York swept the series 4-0, becoming only the 2nd team ever to sweep an opponent that won at least 67 regular season games. The finals matched the Knicks against the San Antonio Spurs, led by Victor Wembanyama, but New York secured the championship 4-1. Jalen Brunson earned Finals Most Valuable Player after scoring 45 points in the championship, clinching Game 5 and delivering several late-game scoring performances throughout the postseason. Karl Anthony Towns led every player in playoff win shares, highlighting his impact on both ends of the floor. OG, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, Mitchell Robinson, and Towns formed a versatile lineup that switched nearly every matchup while protecting the rim and dominating the glass with outstanding defense. Every finals game was decided by only a handful of possessions, yet New York captured 4 of the 5 contests. More than 2 million fans attended the championship parade, while the finals became the league's most watched championship series since 1998, completing one of basketball's most memorable title runs. 2024 Celtics. The 2024 Celtics completed one of the most dominant championship runs in NBA history by finishing the playoffs with a 16-3 record after posting the league's best regular season mark at 64-18. They also led the league in offensive rating, ranked near the top in defensive efficiency, and finished with one of the highest net ratings ever recorded. Boston never needed more than 5 games to win a playoff series, showing remarkable consistency from the opening round through the finals. They first defeated the Miami Heat 4-1 before eliminating the Cleveland Cavaliers by the same margin. The Eastern Conference Finals ended in a 4-game sweep of the Indiana Pacers, extending Boston's winning streak to 10 consecutive playoff games after splitting the opening 2 contests against Miami. The finals matched them against the Dallas Mavericks, and Boston claimed the championship 4-1. Their only postseason losses came once against Miami, once against Cleveland, and once against Dallas. Jason Tatum led the team in postseason points, rebounds, and assists, while Jaylen Brown earned both Eastern Conference Finals Most Valuable Player and Finals Most Valuable Player. Brown became only the 4th player ever to win both awards during the same postseason. Drew Holiday strengthened the perimeter defense. After arriving before the season, Derek White became one of the league's best help defenders despite playing guard, and Kristaps Porzingis added size and scoring whenever available. Boston attempted more 3-pointers than any playoff team, while remaining among the postseason leaders in defensive efficiency. The championship delivered the franchise's 18th title, breaking a tie with the Lakers for the most championships in NBA history and completing a 7-year climb built around Tatum and Brown. 1996 Bulls. The 1996 Bulls reinforced their place among basketball's greatest teams by following a record-setting regular season with another dominant championship run. Chicago entered the playoffs after finishing 72-10, becoming the first team in NBA history to reach 72 regular season victories. They also ranked first in both offensive rating and defensive rating, while posting one of the highest average scoring margins the league had ever seen. The postseason began with a 3-game sweep of the Miami Heat, as Chicago held Miami below 80 points per game throughout the series. The next challenge came against the 60-win New York Knicks, but the Bulls won 4-1 without allowing the series to become competitive. The Eastern Conference Finals brought the Orlando Magic, the same team that had eliminated Chicago 1 year earlier after Michael Jordan returned from retirement. This time, the Bulls answered by sweeping Orlando 4-0 while outscoring them by more than 15 points per game. The finals matched Chicago against the Seattle Supersonics, who entered with 64 regular season wins and the league's second-ranked defense behind Gary Payton and Shawn Kemp. Chicago raced to a 3-0 lead before Seattle claimed the next two contests. The Bulls closed the series in Game 6 to secure the championship. Michael Jordan averaged 30.7 points during the postseason and earned his fourth Finals Most Valuable Player award. Scottie Pippen added nearly 19 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists while defending every position, and Dennis Rodman controlled the glass throughout the playoffs. After leading the league in rebounding during the regular season, Chicago finished 15-3, completed an 87-13 overall season, and confirmed one of the greatest championship campaigns in NBA history. 1987 Lakers. The 1987 Lakers completed the greatest season of the Showtime era by finishing the playoffs with a 15-3 record after posting 65 regular season wins. Magic Johnson captured the league's Most Valuable Player award, and Los Angeles entered the postseason with one of the most explosive offenses in basketball. They opened by sweeping the Denver Nuggets 3-0 while averaging well over 120 points per game. The next round brought the Golden State Warriors, and Los Angeles won the series 4-1. Despite Golden State stealing one contest behind Sleepy Floyd's unforgettable scoring performance. The Western Conference Finals matched the Lakers against the Seattle Supersonics, who had become only the second 7th seed ever to reach a conference final. Los Angeles swept the series 4-0 as Magic Johnson directed the offense and James Worthy consistently led the scoring attack. The finals delivered another legendary chapter in the rivalry with the Boston Celtics. It marked the 10th championship meeting between the two franchises in Larry Bird's final finals appearance. Los Angeles won the series 4-2 to capture the championship. Magic averaged 26.2 points, 13 assists, and 8 rebounds during the final, while earning his third Finals Most Valuable Player award. James Worthy averaged over 21 playoff points with outstanding efficiency. Kareem remained an elite interior scorer at 40 years old, and Michael Cooper anchored the perimeter defense after winning Defensive Player of the Year. The Lakers defeated multiple 50-win teams, captured the franchise's 10th championship after moving to Los Angeles, and finally defeated the Celtics in Boston Garden during the final. Their elite passing, transition offense, depth, and Hall of Fame talent made this one of the defining championship runs in NBA history. 1986 Celtics. The 1986 Celtics completed one of the greatest championship runs in NBA history by finishing the playoffs with a 15-3 record after posting a remarkable 67-15 regular season. Boston also went 40-1 at home during the regular season, creating one of the strongest home court advantages the league has ever seen. Larry Bird entered the playoffs after winning his third consecutive Most Valuable Player award, leading a roster loaded with Hall of Fame talent. Boston opened the postseason by sweeping the Chicago Bulls 3-0. Although Michael Jordan averaged 43.7 points during the series and scored a playoff record 63 points in Game 2, Boston's depth proved too much over 3 games. The next round matched them against the Atlanta Hawks, who had won 50 regular season games behind Dominique Wilkins. The Celtics won the series 4-1 before sweeping the Milwaukee Bucks 4-0 in the Eastern Conference Final. Milwaukee entered with 57 wins and one of the league's best defenses. Yet Boston controlled every game to reach another final. Their championship opponent became the Houston Rockets, led by Hakeem Olajuwon and Ralph Sampson. After Houston had eliminated the defending champion Lakers, Boston won the finals 4-2, with Larry Bird averaging 24 points, 9.7 rebounds, and 9.5 assists, while earning Finals Most Valuable Player. Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish controlled the front court. Dennis Johnson anchored the perimeter, and Bill Walton strengthened the bench after winning 6th Man of the Year. The Celtics combined elite passing, rebounding, interior defense, and basketball intelligence throughout the postseason, securing the franchise's 16th championship and reinforcing why this roster is still considered one of the greatest teams in NBA history. 1948 Bullets. The 1948 Baltimore Bullets completed one of the most remarkable championship runs in professional basketball history by winning the Basketball Association of America title during the franchise's very first season. The Basketball Association of America later merged with the National Basketball League to form today's NBA, making this championship an important part of league history. Baltimore finished the postseason with an 8-2 record and became the first expansion team in major North American professional sports to win a championship during its inaugural season. Their playoff journey began against the New York Knicks in the Eastern Division semifinal. Baltimore won the deciding third game, despite entering the series without home court advantage. They then faced the Chicago Stags in the Basketball Association of America semifinal. Chicago had finished with one of the league's best regular season records, yet Baltimore recovered to win the final two games and captured the series 4-2. The championship series matched the Bullets against the Philadelphia Warriors, who featured one of basketball's biggest stars in Joe Fulks. Baltimore defeated Philadelphia 4-2 by relying on disciplined team play instead of one dominant scorer. Buddy Jeanette served as both player and coach, directing the offense while providing steady leadership throughout the postseason. Connie Simmons supplied consistent scoring and strong rebounding, helping Baltimore maintain balance on both ends of the floor. The Bullets built their success around outstanding half-court defense, crisp ball movement, physical interior play, and dependable contributions across the entire roster. Their championship remains unique because no expansion team in the modern NBA has ever captured a title during its first season. That incredible achievement secured Baltimore's place among the most surprising and historic champions basketball has ever produced. 2023 Nuggets. The 2023 Nuggets completed one of the greatest championship runs in NBA history by winning the franchise's first title after 47 seasons in the league. Denver finished the playoffs with a 16-4 record and never trailed in a playoff series. They entered as the number 1 seed in the Western Conference after posting a 53-29 regular season record. Their postseason began with a 4-1 victory over the Minnesota Timberwolves before a 6-game battle against the Phoenix Suns. Phoenix featured Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Chris Paul. Yet Denver closed the series with a 25-point road victory to advance. The Western Conference Finals brought the Los Angeles Lakers, led by LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Although every game remained competitive, Denver completed a 4-game sweep, becoming the first team ever to sweep a LeBron James team in a conference final. The finals matched the Nuggets against the Miami Heat, and Denver secured the championship 4-1. Nikola Jokic produced one of the greatest postseason performances ever by leading the entire playoffs in total points, rebounds, and assists, becoming the first player in league history to accomplish that feat during a single postseason. He finished with 600 points, 269 rebounds, 190 assists, and 10 triple-doubles before earning unanimous finals most valuable player. Jamal Murray averaged over 26 points and 7 assists while becoming the first player ever to record multiple playoff triple-doubles with at least 30 points in each. Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr., and KCP completed a balanced roster built around elite ball movement, efficient offense, and disciplined defense. Denver never faced elimination and delivered the greatest season in franchise history with remarkable consistency from beginning to end. 2007 Spurs. The 2007 Spurs completed one of the greatest championship runs in NBA history by winning their 4th title in 9 seasons and strengthening one of basketball's greatest dynasties. San Antonio finished the playoffs with a 16-4 record after entering as the Western Conference's 3rd seed, despite winning 58 regular season games. Their postseason began with a 4-1 victory over the Denver Nuggets before a memorable 6-game series against the Phoenix Suns. Many historians consider that matchup the true championship because both teams ranked among the league's strongest contenders throughout the season. San Antonio survived the series after winning 4-2, then defeated the Utah Jazz 4-1 in the Western Conference Finals. Utah entered behind Deron Williams and Carlos Boozer, but the Spurs' experience proved too much. The finals matched San Antonio against the Cleveland Cavaliers, who had reached the franchise's first championship series behind LeBron James. The Spurs completed a 4-game sweep to secure another title. Tony Parker averaged 24.5 points during the finals while shooting over 56% from the field, and became the first European-born player to earn Finals Most Valuable Player. Tim Duncan anchored the interior with elite rebounding and defense throughout the postseason, while Manu Ginobili supplied consistent scoring and playmaking off the bench. Bruce Bowen accepted the toughest perimeter defensive assignments every round, helping San Antonio remain among the playoff leaders in defensive efficiency. Greg Popovich's motion offense generated efficient scoring without relying on a fast pace, and the roster's disciplined execution overwhelmed every opponent. The championship added titles from 1999, 2003, and 2005, giving San Antonio 4 championships in 9 seasons and confirming the franchise as the defining dynasty of the decade. 1964 Celtics. The 1964 Celtics completed one of the greatest championship runs in NBA history by capturing their 6th consecutive championship, extending the longest title streak the league has ever seen. Boston finished the regular season with 59 wins and 21 losses, the best record in basketball, while once again building its success around the league's top defense. Their playoff journey required only 2 rounds under the format used at the time, but both opponents featured all-time great talent. The Eastern Division Finals matched Boston against the Cincinnati Royals, led by Oscar Robertson during one of the greatest stretches of his career. Despite Robertson's incredible production, the Celtics won the series 4-1 behind Bill Russell's rebounding, rim protection, and unmatched team defense. The finals brought another legendary matchup against the San Francisco Warriors and Wilt Chamberlain. Chamberlain had averaged over 36 points and 22 rebounds during the regular season, creating another chapter in basketball's greatest individual rivalry. Boston still controlled the series and defeated the Warriors 4-1 to capture another championship. Bill Russell earned his 6th title in only 8 NBA seasons, while continuing to redefine defensive basketball through rebounding, blocked shots, and transition play. Sam Jones supplied dependable scoring. John Havlicek continued his rise into stardom with relentless energy on both ends. Tom Heinsohn added interior production, Casey Jones directed the offense, and Bob Cousy remained one of the league's greatest playmakers during the closing stage of his career. Rather than relying on one dominant scorer, Boston overwhelmed opponents with depth, passing, fast breaks, and disciplined execution. That championship became another defining step in a dynasty that eventually produced 11 NBA titles across 13 unforgettable seasons. Jalen Brunson. In July of 2024, Jalen Brunson signed a 4-year, $156,549,124 extension with the New York Knicks. And he didn't have to. He was 5th in MVP voting. He was an all-NBA caliber player. Every executive in the league expected him to wait one more offseason and cash in on a significantly larger deal. Instead, he signed immediately, leaving roughly $113 million on the table. That's not a typo, $113 million. Brunson voluntarily gave that up because he wanted the Knicks to have flexibility, and it worked. Every dollar of the extension was guaranteed, and it included a player option in the final season, so Brunson still protected himself while doing the organization an enormous favor. The NBA's new collective bargaining agreement had introduced brutal second apron penalties, meaning teams that crossed that threshold lost the ability to aggregate salaries and trades, use trade exceptions freely, or sign buyout players above certain thresholds. By taking less money, Brunson delayed New York's climb into those restrictive levels that directly allowed the Knicks to complete the trade for Mikal Bridges while already carrying major salaries for OG and Karl Anthony Towns. Without that sacrifice, none of that roster construction happens. And Brunson wasn't some project they were betting on either. He'd already led New York to 50 wins. He was already one of the league's premier isolation scorers and the unquestioned face of one of basketball's biggest markets. The Knicks got MVP caliber production at a significant discount, and then Brunson went and won them their first championship since 1973, taking home Finals MVP in the process. He also positioned himself brilliantly for the future. Because of the player option and rising salary cap projections, he could potentially recover much of what he sacrificed on his next extension. This wasn't just generosity, it was one of the smartest and most selfless financial decisions a superstar has ever made. Steph Curry. Before the 2012 to 2013 season, Steph Curry signed a 4-year, $44 million extension with Golden State that averaged roughly $11 million per season. At the time, It wasn't viewed as a bargain. It was viewed as a calculated risk. Between 2011 and 2013, Curry had suffered repeated ankle injuries that threatened everything. He underwent multiple surgeries. He missed substantial portions of consecutive seasons. League executives openly questioned whether his ankles would ever let him become a franchise cornerstone. So Golden State took on the injury risk, and Curry accepted the security. Then the gamble immediately became the greatest bet in NBA history. In the very first season of the extension, Curry became an all-star in Golden State, transformed into a perennial contender. By the unanimous MVP season 2015 to 2016, Curry was earning only about $12 million while leading the NBA in scoring and three-pointers made, posting a then-record 73-win season and revolutionizing how basketball was played. He was vastly outperforming nearly every maximum salary player in the league at roughly half of a max contract. That financial advantage was enormous. The Warriors retained Klay Thompson. They retained Draymond Green. They kept Iggy, Sean Livingston, and Andrew Bogut. They built one of the deepest rosters in modern NBA history because Curry's salary occupied such a small percentage of the cap relative to his production. Then in the summer of 2016, while Curry was still playing under this below-market extension, Golden State had enough financial flexibility to sign Kevin Durant in free agency after the 73-win season. That's the direct consequence of this contract. Curry won the championship. He won the MVP. He became the first unanimous MVP in NBA history. He set single-season three-point records. He changed basketball forever. And the Warriors paid roughly $11 million a year for all of it. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to be posting every day. Thanks. Anyways, Miami Heat Big Three. During the summer of 2010, LeBron James, D. Wade, and Chris Bosh all accepted salaries below the maximum they were eligible to receive. Each player signed a first-year salary of approximately $14.5 million instead of the roughly $16.6 million they could have demanded. Individually, that gap seems modest. Combined, it created enough financial flexibility to build one of the most talented rosters ever assembled through free agency, and these weren't three players chasing their prime. LeBron was a two-time reigning MVP. Wade was already an NBA Finals MVP and champion. Bosh had averaged over 24 points and 10 rebounds per game in Toronto. Every one of them qualified for maximum contracts elsewhere. Instead, they prioritized the collective. The contracts synchronized perfect. All three signed 6-year deals with early termination options after 4 seasons, giving them matching timelines and joint leverage over organizational decisions. Miami used the added flexibility to retain Udonis Haslem and add veteran role players who filled out the roster around the superstar core. The results were immediate and sustained. Over the 4 seasons, all 3 stars remained together. Miami reached 4 consecutive NBA Finals, won back-to-back championships in 2012 and 2013, and recorded a then NBA record 27-game winning streak. LeBron won 2 league MVP awards and 2 Finals MVP awards during the partnership. The team posted historically dominant net ratings throughout its peak, but the legacy extends far beyond the trophy case. The willingness of 3 franchise-level players to coordinate free agency while accepting slightly reduced salaries became one of the defining moments of modern player empowerment. Every superstar partnership that followed was measured against Miami's blueprint. The Heat paid 3 slightly discounted superstar salaries and received one of the most dominant 4-year stretches by any modern NBA team in exchange, Scottie Pippen. In July of 1991, Scottie Pippen signed a 5-year, $18 million extension with the Chicago Bulls. That averages out to $3.6 million per season. At the time, Pippen had made only 1 All-Star team. By the time the contract ended, he'd become arguably the best perimeter defender in basketball and one of the top 5 players in the entire league. The reason Pippen signed it had everything to do with his background. He came from an extremely poor family in Hamburg, Arkansas, with 11 siblings. His father had suffered a stroke. His brother was permanently disabled after an accident. Financial security wasn't just important, it was everything. Bulls general manager Jerry Krause offered long-term guaranteed money, and Pippen took it. He couldn't have predicted what came next. During the life of that extension, he made 7 consecutive All-Star teams, 7 consecutive All-NBA teams, and 8 consecutive All-Defensive First teams. He finished 3rd in MVP voting in the 1993-94 season while Jordan was away playing baseball, essentially carrying the Bulls himself. By the time the 2018 to 98 season arrived, Pippen was one of the 5 best players in basketball and earning approximately $2.8 million. Jordan made more than 10 times that salary during the same season, 122nd in league salary. That's where Pippen ranked, despite being Chicago's clear second best player on a 6-time championship team. The Bulls' roster flexibility was massive because of it. Chicago could retain key veterans and build depth around Jordan and Pippen in ways that simply wouldn't be possible today. They won championships in 91, 92, 93, 96, 97, and 98. They had the then record 72-win season in 1995 to 96. The dynasty ran almost entirely on the foundation of Pippen being drastically underpaid, and it remains one of the most famous contract bargains in professional sports history. Isaiah Thomas. In July of 2014, Isaiah Thomas signed a 4-year, $27 million contract through a sign and trade with the Phoenix Suns, averaging roughly $6.75 million per season. At the time, he was viewed by many executives as an undersized sixth man who might never develop into a franchise point guard. He was 5'9". He'd never averaged 21 points per game. He'd never been all-star. Phoenix assumed they were getting a quality starter. They got something far more valuable, and then they traded it away. Thomas averaged over 15 points in his first season, despite coming off the bench, and at the trade deadline, he was dealt to Boston as part of a 3-team deal. The Celtics inherited the overwhelming majority of a contract that still had years remaining. That's when the value truly exploded. Thomas became a 2-time NBA All-Star in Boston. He made the All-NBA second team. He finished 5th in MVP voting during the 2016-17 season, while averaging 28.9 points per game. He led the Celtics to the Eastern Conference Finals, and he earned $6.6 million that season, while more than 100 NBA players made more money than him. Numerous role players, multiple backup guards, average starters across the league were making 2 to 4 times his annual salary while he was posting a top 5 MVP season. His clutch production was so legendary that season he earned the nickname King in the Fourth, finishing as one of the league leaders in fourth quarter scoring. Boston maintained enormous payroll flexibility the entire time. They kept strong depth around him. They built a legitimate contender while paying their best player less than $7 million. If Thomas had entered unrestricted free agency after that season, he almost certainly commands a maximum contract. Instead, a devastating hip injury arrived before he could cash in, making this one of the greatest value contracts for teams and one of the most heartbreaking financial stories for any player. Tim Duncan. In July of 2012, Tim Duncan signed a 2-year, approximately $20 million contract with San Antonio, accepting roughly $10 million per season. He was 36 years old. He just averaged 15.4 points and 9 rebounds, while making the All-NBA first team and All-Defensive second team. By every measure, he remained one of basketball's elite players. He could have earned $15 to $20 million annually on the open market. Instead, he took half that. The reason was simple. Duncan wanted San Antonio to keep its championship roster intact. The discount allowed the Spurs to retain Tony Parker, keep Manu Ginobili, maintain elite bench depth, and add veteran role players without destroying their financial structure. The results were immediate. During the 2012-13 season, Duncan made the All-NBA first team again, finished 7th in MVP voting, and led San Antonio to the NBA Finals. In that Finals against Miami, he averaged 18.3 points and over 11 rebounds while shooting over 50% from the field. The Spurs came within a stunning Miami comeback in Games 6 and 7 of winning it all. Then came the payoff. Duncan exercised a player option, later re-signed on another discounted deal, and San Antonio defeated Miami in the 2014 NBA Finals. The Spurs produced one of the highest point differentials in finals history. Duncan won his 5th championship while still playing at an All-NBA level. His on-off numbers consistently showed San Antonio defending at a dramatically higher level whenever he was on the floor, and his defensive win shares remained among the league's best deep into his career. Duncan's willingness to repeatedly accept below-market contracts over nearly 2 decades is one of the defining reasons the Spurs won 50 or more games every full season of his career and sustained championship contention longer than virtually any franchise in league history. Michael Jordan. Before the 1988-89 season, Michael Jordan signed an 8-year, $25 million extension with Chicago that kept him under contract through 1995 to 96 and averaged approximately $3.1 million per season. At the time, it was one of the richest long-term contracts in NBA history. Within a few years, it became one of the league's greatest bargains. When Jordan signed the extension, he'd already won Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, the 1988 MVP, 2 scoring titles, and 3 consecutive All-NBA first-team selections. He was already arguably the best player in the league. Nobody could have predicted what followed. Over the 8 years of that extension, Jordan won 6 NBA championships, 6 Finals MVP awards, 4 regular season MVP awards, 7 scoring titles, 6 All-Defensive first-team selections, and 7 All-NBA first-team selections. As NBA revenues exploded in the early 1990s, Jordan's salary remained fixed. By the middle of the extension, numerous players with dramatically less impact were earning salaries approaching or exceeding his annual $3 million figure. Chicago still had the greatest player in basketball. Jordan led the NBA in scoring every full season during the contract, except the year he left to play baseball. The Bulls became one of the world's most recognizable sports franchises. Television ratings reached unprecedented levels. International popularity surged. NBA merchandise sales exploded. The entire league grew enormously, and Chicago's payroll reflected none of it. The value imbalance became so obvious that when the extension expired, ownership made a dramatic correction. Jordan earned approximately $30 million in 1996 to 97 and approximately $33 million the following season, both setting single-season salary records at the time. Those 2 one-year contracts alone exceeded the total value of his previous 8-year deal combined. Dirk Nowitzki. In 2014, Dirk Nowitzki signed a 3-year, $25 million contract with Dallas, averaging roughly $8.3 million per season. He was 36 years old and only 3 seasons removed from winning the 2011 NBA championship and Finals MVP. According to multiple reports at the time, both the Los Angeles Lakers and Houston Rockets were prepared to offer him contracts worth approximately $92 million. Dirk chose to stay in Dallas for roughly 1/4 of that amount. The decision was entirely intentional. Mark Cuban and the Mavericks wanted maximum salary cap flexibility to pursue elite free agents, and Dirk reduced his own salary to give them that room. Instead of carrying a superstar salary exceeding $20 million annually, Dallas paid roughly $8 million. That difference created meaningful cap room and reflected a pattern Dirk had followed throughout his career. The 2014 agreement was simply the largest single sacrifice he made. He never played for another franchise. He spent all 21 NBA seasons in Dallas, retiring as the franchise leader in points, games played, and wins. And as the greatest player in Mavericks history, although Dallas was unable to land every superstar it pursued with the added flexibility, the contract itself stands as one of the most remarkable acts of loyalty in professional sports history. Very few Hall of Fame players, still capable of starting at an all-star level, have voluntarily walked away from $92 million to remain with one organization. Dirk did it without hesitation. The financial sacrifice was enormous, and the competitive payoff was imperfect, but the legacy of what the contract represented, an all-time great choosing loyalty over maximum earnings at the end of his career, makes it one of the most memorable agreements ever signed. Steve Nash. In the summer of 2004, Steve Nash signed a 6-year contract worth approximately $65 million with the Phoenix Suns after Dallas declined to match the offer due to concerns over his age and chronic back condition. Nash was already 30 years old. The deal was immediately viewed as risky. Instead, it became one of the greatest free agent signings in NBA history. In his very first season under the contract, the Suns improved from 29 wins to 62 wins, one of the largest single-season improvements in NBA history. Nash won the MVP award. Phoenix's offense became the most efficient in the league. Mike D'Antoni's fast-paced system revolved entirely around Nash's passing, shooting, and pace control, and Nash then won a second consecutive MVP the following season. Very few free agent contracts have ever produced back-to-back MVP awards immediately after signing. During the life of the deal, Nash accumulated 2 MVP awards, 5 All-NBA first-team selections, multiple assist titles, and multiple 50-40-90 shooting seasons. He also changed how basketball was played. The Suns popularized an offense built around pace, early offense, high pick and roll, elite spacing, and heavy three-point shooting. Many modern NBA offensive concepts trace directly back to Nash's Phoenix teams. Nash consistently ranked among league leaders in assists, offensive rating, true shooting percentage, and win shares. Dallas had passed on him over durability concerns. Instead of declining, Nash produced arguably the greatest basketball of his career after signing the contract. Phoenix turned a $65 million investment into 2 MVP awards, multiple 60-win seasons, 4 Western Conference Finals appearances during the Nash era, and one of the most influential offensive dynasties in basketball history. Few major free agent signings have ever so dramatically exceeded expectations or reshaped the sport itself. Kyle Lowry. In July of 2014, Kyle Lowry signed a 4-year, $48 million contract with the Toronto Raptors at an average annual salary of approximately $12 million. He'd drawn interest from Miami and Houston, but chose to stay in Toronto. At the time, he had only 1 All-Star appearance, had never made an All-NBA team, and was viewed as a very good starting point guard, rather than a true franchise cornerstone. Over the 4 years of the deal, he became something far more. Lowry made 4 All-Star teams under the contract, earned All-NBA third-team honors, won an Olympic gold medal, and established himself as one of the NBA's best two-way point guards. Toronto averaged over 54 wins per full season during the deal, won 4 consecutive Atlantic Division titles, and reached the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in franchise history in 2016. Lowry averaged roughly 20-plus points during multiple seasons with around 7 assists per game, elite three-point shooting on high volume, and strong advanced defensive metrics for a point guard. He consistently led the league in charges drawn and ranked among the leaders in win shares and box plus minus among guards throughout the contract. His impact consistently exceeded his box score. Advanced metrics routinely ranked him among the NBA's most valuable players because of his elite transition offense, outstanding pick and roll decision making, and exceptional leadership. Numerous guards with inferior production earned more money throughout the deal. Toronto never had to pay him a maximum salary while employing an All-NBA caliber point guard. That flexibility allowed the Raptors to retain DeMar DeRozan, acquire Serge Ibaka, acquire Marc Gasol, and eventually trade for Kawhi Leonard without worrying about replacing their point guard. The championship came 1 season after this contract expired, but the foundation for it was built almost entirely while Lowry played under this team-friendly deal. Kyle Korver. In July of 2013, Kyle Korver signed a 4-year, $24 million contract with the Atlanta Hawks at $6 million per season. He reportedly turned down a shorter, higher annual offer from Milwaukee because he preferred long-term security. Atlanta got one of the greatest deals of the decade. Korver was already recognized as one of the NBA's best shooters when he signed, but few expected him to become one of the league's most impactful offensive role player. During the life of the contract, he became an NBA All-Star, earned All-NBA third-team honor, and helped transform Atlanta into a 60-win team. The shooting numbers under the contract were historic. He led the NBA in three-point percentage and shot 47.2% from 3 during the 2013-14 season. He extended a streak to 127 consecutive games with a made three-pointer, breaking the NBA record. In the 2014-15 season, he started all 82 games, helped Atlanta finish 60-22, and earned the top seed in the Eastern Conference, was named to the NBA All-Star team, and finished among the league leaders in true shooting percentage. Korver's influence went far beyond points per game. Because defenses refused to leave him open, he generated enormous spacing, forced constant rotations, and opened driving lanes for teammates without dominating the basket. Many lineup metrics showed Atlanta's offense improving dramatically whenever Korver was on the floor. All of that production came at $6 million per season, while many average starters across the league made considerably more money, while providing far less offensive impact. The contract became an early example of how elite floor spacing could dramatically outperform its salary, and as the NBA shifted toward perimeter shooting with each passing season, his deal looked better every single year. Draymond Green. In July of 2015, fresh off helping Golden State win the NBA championship, Draymond Green signed a 5-year, $82 million contract, averaging approximately $16.4 million per season. At signing, he'd made his first All-Star team, won his first championship, and finished second in Defensive Player of the Year voting. Golden State locked him up right before everything changed. Beginning in 2016, The NBA salary cap jumped from approximately $70 million to over $94 million in a single offseason because of the new television rights deal. Maximum salaries exploded. Average starter salaries skyrocketed. Green's contract had already been signed. His percentage of team payroll steadily declined, while his production continued increasing. Under the deal, Green won Defensive Player of the Year, made multiple All-NBA teams in all defensive first teams, became a 4-time All-Star, and won 3 NBA championships. He consistently ranked among league leaders in assists by a power forward, defensive box plus minus, defensive win shares, overall box plus minus, and value over replacement player. He became one of only a handful of forwards regularly functioning as his team's primary playmaker, while simultaneously serving as the defensive backbone of one of the greatest dynasties in NBA history. He could guard every position, switch onto elite guards, protect the rim, and quarterback Golden State's entire defensive communication system. His versatility fundamentally changed how modern NBA defenses were constructed. And while Klay Thompson earned over $70 million on his extension, Steph Curry later signed the NBA's first $200 million contract, and Kevin Durant joined on a maximum contract, Green remained below market for one of basketball's 3 most valuable players. His team-friendly deal helped Golden State maintain the payroll flexibility to sustain one of the greatest rosters ever assembled, LeBron James. In the summer of 2014, LeBron James returned to Cleveland and signed a 2-year, $42 million contract with a player option after the first season. It was intentionally short. LeBron knew the NBA was approaching a massive national television rights deal that would dramatically increase basketball-related income starting in 2016, which would spike the salary cap substantially. Rather than locking into a traditional 4 or 5-year maximum deal, he chose a short-term structure so he could repeatedly re-enter free agency as cap space expanded, maximizing lifetime earnings while maintaining leverage over roster construction decisions. The strategy worked perfectly for everyone involved. Cleveland immediately used the certainty of having LeBron under contract to complete the blockbuster trade for Kevin Love. The Cavaliers aggressively acquired veterans including J.R. Smith, Iman Shumpert, Timofey Mozgov, Channing Frye, and Richard Jefferson throughout his second stint. During the 2-year agreement, LeBron reached the NBA Finals and averaged approximately 25 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists per game, while finishing in the top 3 of MVP voting. He exercised the player option as planned and signed another short-term contract, then repeated the strategy again in 2016. His salary rose alongside the exploding cap each time. Then came the championship. Over the 4 seasons after his return, Cleveland reached 4 consecutive NBA Finals and delivered the franchise's first championship, becoming the first team in finals history to overcome a 3-1 deficit when they beat the 73-win Warriors in the 2016 final. The contract fundamentally changed how superstar agreements were structured across the league. Numerous elite players have since adopted the same approach of maximizing leverage through shorter deals and frequent free agency rather than chasing years. Kevin Durant, after winning the NBA championship and finals MVP in 2017, Kevin Durant declined his player option and became an unrestricted free agent. He then re-signed with Golden State on a 2-year contract worth approximately $51.25 million with a player option after the first season, intentionally accepting less than the maximum salary he was eligible to receive. The reduction was strategic. By taking less in year 1, Durant helped the Warriors preserve enough financial flexibility to retain Iggy, keep Sean Livingston, and hold together one of the deepest rosters in the NBA without making far more severe luxury tax sacrifices immediately after winning the title. The value of the contract became obvious almost right away. During the 2-year agreement, Durant won another championship, took home a 2nd consecutive Finals MVP, earned all NBA first-team honors, and averaged over 26 points per game while continuing to shoot near 50% from the field, 40% from 3, and nearly 90% from the free throw line. He remained arguably the most efficient high-volume scorer in basketball, and he was doing it under a contract that reflected none of that value. The structure also mirrored LeBron James' strategy. Like LeBron, Durant chose a shorter deal to return to free agency sooner as the salary cap continued rising. He ultimately opted out after the first season and signed another short-term extension with Golden State. What makes the contract historically significant is the simplicity of what Durant gave up. He had just won Finals MVP. He was the most dominant offensive player on earth. He could have demanded every available dollar. Instead, he voluntarily took less to preserve a championship roster around him, making this one of the most genuinely selfless superstar contracts in NBA history. Mark Price. In 1987, Mark Price signed a 5-year, approximately $5 million contract extension with the Cleveland Cavaliers, averaging roughly $1 million per season. He had just completed his rookie year. Cleveland was betting on his development. That bet paid off at a level the organization could not have reasonably predicted. During the life of the contract, Price developed into one of the NBA's premier point guards. He became a 4-time All-Star, earned 4 All-NBA selections, and joined the prestigious 50-40-90 club, one of only a handful of players in NBA history to achieve it. He was one of the greatest free throw shooters the league had ever seen, and one of the pioneers of the modern pull-up three-pointer. Long before today's pace and space era, Price was regularly shooting threes, off the dribble, in transition, and off pick-and-roll actions. Many basketball historians consider him one of the earliest prototypes for today's offensive point guard. While earning roughly $1 million annually, he consistently ranked among the NBA leaders in assists, three-point percentage, free throw percentage, and offensive efficiency, while posting strong advanced metrics across win shares and box plus minus. The affordable contract gave Cleveland the flexibility to build one of the deepest teams of the late 1980s around him. Because Price was earning far below superstar money, the Cavaliers could also retain Brad Daugherty, Larry Nance, Ron Harper, Craig Alo, and Hot Rod Williams simultaneously. Those teams ranked among the Eastern Conference's strongest contenders throughout the late 80s. Price's production dramatically exceeded his salary at every stage of the contract, and Cleveland secured years of elite point guard play for approximately $1 million per season during his ascent into becoming one of basketball's most efficient and creative offensive players. Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson was 6 feet 9 inches tall and played point guard his entire career, and that alone tells you something special was happening. He spent his entire prime with the Los Angeles Lakers, running the Showtime offense that became one of the most famous fast break systems in basketball history. He won 5 championships in 1980, 1982, 1985, 1987, and 1988. 9 finals appearances in 12 healthy seasons. That's not a coincidence. That's dominance. He won 3 Most Valuable Player awards, 3 Finals MVP awards, and was a 12-time All-Star. He led the league in assists 4 different seasons and finished his career averaging 11.2 assists per game, still the highest career average in NBA history. He did all of that in only 906 regular season games, far fewer than almost every player near him on the all-time assists list. His career averages were 19.5 points, 7.2 rebounds, and 11.2 assists on over 52% shooting. He recorded 138 regular season triple-doubles and 24 in the playoff. His rookie season ended with one of the greatest finals performances ever. In Game 6 of the 1980 NBA Finals, Kareem was injured, so Magic started at center as a 20-year-old and recorded 42 points, 15 rebounds, and 7 assists to clinch the championship. He became the youngest Finals MVP ever. His size allowed him to see passing lanes no other guard could access, and his no-look passes and full-court outlet passes completely changed transition of him. The Lakers won over 70% of their regular season games with him on the floor throughout the 1980s. He was named to both the NBA 50th and 75th anniversary teams. Steph Curry. Steph Curry is the greatest shooter in basketball history, and the numbers aren't even debatable. He made 402 three-pointers during the 2015 to 2016 season, becoming the first player ever to cross the 400 mark after he'd already broken the previous record of 286, which was also his own. That season, he shot over 50% from the field, over 45% from 3, and over 90% from the free throw line simultaneously, joining the 50-40-90 club while leading the entire league in three-pointers made. He became the first unanimous most valuable player in NBA history that year. The Warriors finished with 73 wins, the best regular season record ever. He's a 4-time NBA champion, earning Finals MVP in 2022 when he silenced critics who questioned whether he could carry a team without Kevin Durant. He was a 12-time All-Star and holds the all-time record for career made three-pointers, becoming the first player ever to surpass 4,000. His shooting gravity forces defenses to guard him from 30 feet away. which opens driving lanes and easy baskets for teammates without him touching the ball. Teams adopted switching defenses and aggressive trapping schemes specifically because of him. Golden State offenses with Curry on the floor have repeatedly ranked among the most efficient in NBA history. He regularly attempts 10 or more threes per game at near 40% efficiency, a combination that had never existed before. His style directly changed youth basketball, college offenses, and how every NBA front office builds its roster. He was named to the NBA 75th anniversary team and stands alone as the most transformative shooter the game has ever produced. Oscar Robertson averaged a triple-double for the entire 1961 to 1962 season. 30 points, 12 rebounds, and 11 assists per game for an entire year. That record stood completely unchallenged for over 50 years. His career averages were 25.7 points, 7.5 rebounds, and 9.5 assists. And he did it before the three-point line even existed, despite teammates and coaches consistently noting his excellent long-range ability. He won the 1964 Most Valuable Player Award, was a 12-time All-Star, and earned 9 All-NBA first-team selections. He led the league in assists 6 different seasons and finished his career with nearly 10,000 assists in an era that counted fewer possessions and converted fewer plays into official assists than today's game does. He recorded 181 career triple-doubles, the all-time record at the time, and it wasn't challenged for decades. He was one of the strongest guards ever, physically, regularly posting up defenders, and creating offense from the block at a time when guards weren't expected to do that. He led the Cincinnati Royals to multiple playoff appearances with limited supporting casts, then joined Kareem in Milwaukee and won the 1971 NBA championship. By then, he was already in the later stages of his career. He also played a critical role off the court, serving as a leader of the Players Association during a pivotal era, and the legal settlement known as the Oscar Robertson Rule fundamentally changed free agency and player movement in professional basketball forever. He finished among the all-time leaders in points, assists, and triple-doubles simultaneously, and was named to both the NBA 50th and 75th anniversary teams. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to be posting every day. Thanks. Anyways, Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook did something in the 2016 to 2017 season that hadn't happened since 1962. He averaged 31.6 points, 10.7 rebounds, and 10.4 assists per game, becoming the first player since Oscar Robertson to average a triple-double over an entire season, and he won the Most Valuable Player award for it. Then he did it again the next year, then the year after that, then again in 2020 to 2021. No other player in NBA history has averaged a triple-double in more than one season. He finished his career as the all-time triple-double leader after surpassing Robertson's long-standing record, and his triple-doubles came in every variety imaginable, including 50-point triple-doubles and one specific performance in April 2017 when he recorded a 50-point triple-double against Denver and hit the game-winning three-pointer that also clinched the MVP race simultaneously. He led the NBA in assists 3 different seasons and won 2 scoring titles, one of only a handful of players ever to win both. He was a 9-time All-Star and 2-time first-team selection and was named to the NBA 75th anniversary team. Defensively, his explosiveness made him one of the fastest guards ever baseline to baseline. Oklahoma City's system allowed him to collect defensive rebounds and immediately launch fast breaks without needing an outlet pass, and he became the franchise leader in points, assists, rebounds, steals, games played, and triple-doubles. He's one of only a few guards in league history to simultaneously finish with over 20,000 points, 9,000 assists, and 8,000 rebounds. He permanently changed how the point guard position is evaluated. Shea won back-to-back Most Valuable Player awards, an NBA championship, and a Finals MVP. And by the time he accomplished all of that, he was still in his mid-20s. He led Oklahoma City from the lottery to one of the greatest seasons in franchise history. And his 2025 MVP season put him in specific company alongside Michael Jordan as one of the only players ever to average at least 30 points on 50% shooting, while also averaging at least 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 1.5 steals, and 1 block per game in the same season. That combination had basically never existed before. He consistently shoots above 50% from the field as a perimeter creator, despite generating nearly all of his own offense. And he ranks among league leaders in true shooting percentage, player efficiency rating, box plus minus, win shares, value over replacement player, and offensive estimated plus minus. He doesn't rely on high volume three-point shooting the way most modern scoring guards do. Instead, he creates through hesitation dribbles, changes of pace, deceleration, paint finishes with elite body control, and mid-range pull-ups. Unlike most offensive superstars, he also consistently ranks among league leaders in steals and frequently guards opposing primary ball handlers on the other end. His turnover rate is extremely low, considering how much offensive responsibility he carries every night. He became one of only a few players in Thunder franchise history to win MVP after Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, and his trajectory, already featuring multiple MVPs, a championship, and a Finals MVP before turning 28, places him on pace to finish among the greatest point guards the game has ever seen. Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah Thomas led the Detroit Pistons to back-to-back NBA championships in 1989 and 1990. And to understand what that means, you need to understand who they beat along the way. They eliminated teams led by Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Charles Barkley, and Clyde Drexler. Multiple all-time dynasties taken down in consecutive title runs. Thomas was the unquestioned leader of all of it. He was a 12-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA selection, Finals MVP, and was named to the NBA 75th anniversary team. During the 1984 to 1985 season, he led the entire league in assists, averaging over 13 per game, making him one of only a few players ever to average at least 13 assists for an entire year. He averaged over 20 points in multiple seasons and was one of the greatest mid-range shooters and finishers of the 1980s, despite standing only about 6'1". The most famous individual performance of his career came in Game 6 of the 1988 NBA Finals, when he severely sprained his ankle and then scored 25 points in the third quarter alone, setting an NBA Finals record for most points in a single quarter at the time. He finished with 43 despite barely being able to walk, and the Pistons still lost the series in 7. He came back the next 2 seasons and won the championship both times. He was the emotional and tactical center of the Bad Boys identity, balancing Detroit's physical defensive culture with elite offensive orchestration every single game. His ability to defeat multiple all-time dynasties as the undisputed leader of a back-to-back champion gives him one of the strongest championship resumes any point guard has ever built. John Stockton. John Stockton owns the 2 most untouchable records in NBA history: 15,806 career assists and 3,265 career steals, both all-time records by enormous margins. He finished nearly 3,300 assists ahead of the second-place player. He led the NBA in assists for 9 consecutive seasons, from 1987 to 88 through 1995 to 96, more assist titles than any player ever. His single-season assists record of 14.5 per game in 1989 to 90 is the highest ever. And 4 of the 5 highest single-season assist averages in history belong to him. His career averages were 13.1 points, 10.5 assists, 2.2 steals, and 3 rebounds on over 51% shooting from the field, despite being a perimeter guard. He missed only 22 regular season games across 19 seasons, played all 82 games in 16 different seasons, and played 1,504 regular season games total. He averaged double-digit assists in 10 different seasons and finished with over 1,500 more career assists than Magic Johnson. His partnership with Karl Malone in the pick and roll became one of the most successful offensive duos in basketball history, and the Jazz reached the NBA Finals in both 1997 and 1998. He hit the game-winning three-pointer in Game 6 of the 1997 Western Conference Finals against Houston to send Utah to its first ever finals appearance. He earned 5 all-defensive team selections and spent 11 seasons averaging at least 2 steals per game. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2009 and again as a member of the Dream Team in 2010. Chris Paul. Chris Paul is the only player in NBA history to finish second all-time in both career assists and career steals, 12,552 assists and 2,728 steals, with only John Stockton ranked ahead of him in both categories simultaneously. He was a 12-time All-Star, 11-time All-NBA selection, 7-time All-Defensive First-Team selection, and a 6-time steals leader. He was Rookie of the Year, a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, and a member of the NBA 75th anniversary team. His career averages were approximately 16.9 points, 9.2 assists, 4.4 rebounds, and 2 steals per game. During the 2007 to 2008 season, he finished second in MVP voting after averaging over 21 points and 11 assists, while leading New Orleans to 56 wins. He later led the Los Angeles Clippers during the Lob City era, guided Houston to 65 wins in 2017 to 2018, and led Phoenix to its first NBA Finals appearance since 1993. Every franchise he joined improved dramatically almost immediately. He's considered arguably the greatest mid-range shooting point guard ever and one of the greatest late-game decision-makers in league history, rarely committing live ball turnovers and finishing among the best clutch performers statistically throughout his prime. His assist-to-turnover ratio consistently ranked among the highest ever recorded, and his combination of offensive efficiency and elite perimeter defense made him one of the most complete two-way point guards the sport has ever produced. He also served for years as president of the National Basketball Players Association, playing a major role in collective bargaining negotiation for players across the entire league. Steve Nash. Steve Nash won the NBA Most Valuable Player award twice, making him one of only a handful of point guards ever to win multiple MVP awards. His career shooting percentages were approximately 49% from the field, 42% from three, and over 90% from the free throw line, and he was a 4-time member of the 50-40-90 club, more than any player in NBA history. He retired with 10,335 career assists, among the highest totals ever recorded. He led the NBA in assists 5 different seasons, and was an 8-time All-Star and 7-time All-NBA selection. He ran Mike D'Antoni's 7 seconds or less offense in Phoenix, one of the most influential systems in basketball history, and the Suns consistently led the entire NBA in offensive efficiency during his prime. He was one of the only players ever to average over 10 assists while simultaneously shooting over 50% from the field, and he produced multiple 50-40-90 seasons while averaging double-digit assists, a combination of efficiency and playmaking that had essentially never existed before. His pick-and-roll partnership with Amar Stoudemire was one of the most explosive offensive duos the league had ever seen, and he consistently elevated teammates' scoring efficiency through the quality and timing of his passes. He controlled tempo exceptionally well, rarely forced shots, and frequently kept his dribble alive behind the basket to extend possessions until passing lanes opened up. His style of pace and spacing laid conceptual groundwork for the offensive principles that define today's NBA. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2018 and was named to the NBA 75th anniversary team. Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd transformed the New Jersey Nets from a 26-win team into a 52-win team in one season, then immediately led them to the NBA Finals, then led them back again the following year. That single 2-year stretch might be the greatest organizational transformation any point guard has ever produced. He was a 10-time All-Star, 6-time All-NBA selection, 9-time All-Defensive Team selection, and 5-time All-Defensive First Team. He won 2 Olympic gold medals, was named to the NBA 75th anniversary team, and was inducted into the Hall of Fame. He finished 3rd in NBA history in career assists with over 12,000, and also finished among the all-time leaders in career steals with over 2,600. His career also included over 8,700 rebounds, one of the greatest rebounding totals ever by a guard, because he immediately initiated fast breaks off defensive boards without needing an outlet pass first. He led the NBA in assists 5 different seasons and averaged over 8 assists per game across nearly 2 decades. He recorded 107 regular season triple-doubles and 11 in the playoffs. He played major defensive assignments against Kobe Bryant, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, Wade, and LeBron James during Dallas's championship run in 2011, when at 38 years old, he became the oldest starting point guard ever to win an NBA title. He finished his career with over 17,000 points, 12,000 assists, 8,700 rebounds, and 2,600 steals, milestones that very few players in history have reached simultaneously. His combination of elite passing, elite defense, elite rebounding, and 19 seasons of sustained excellence makes him one of the most complete point guards ever produced. Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson scored 45 points in the championship, clinching Game 5 of the 2026 NBA Finals, setting the Knicks franchise record for points in a finals game, and led New York to their first championship since 1973. 53 years of waiting ended. He won Finals MVP and led the Knicks to a 16-3 playoff record, including a comeback from a 29-point deficit during the postseason run. That kind of resume doesn't happen by accident. Brunson was a two-time college national champion at Villanova, winning the National Player of the Year Award, the John Wooden Award, the Naismith Award, and the Bob Cousy Award, and Villanova retired his jersey number. He's one of the very few players in basketball history to win multiple college championships, a College Player of the Year Award, an NBA championship, and a Finals MVP. In the NBA, he consistently averages well over 25 points per game as one of the league's best three-level scorers, despite standing only about 6'2". He doesn't rely on elite athleticism or vertical explosiveness. Instead, he creates through outstanding footwork, hesitation dribbles, elite change of pace, and elite post footwork against smaller defenders. His field goal efficiency, free throw percentage, and turnover rate are all strong relative to the volume of offense he generates every night. He became the unquestioned leader of the Knicks almost immediately after arriving, turning New York into a consistent playoff team and eventually a champion. His calm decision-making under pressure has earned universal respect throughout the league. By leading the Knicks as their clear offensive centerpiece to a championship, he joined a very small group of point guards in NBA history who have carried a franchise all the way to the title as its undisputed number one option. Bob Cousy. Bob Cousy invented most of the moves that modern point guards take for granted. Behind the back passes, no-look passes, one-handed full-court outlet passes, creative dribble moves, advanced fast break orchestration, all of it was either created or popularized by Cousy during the 1950s, when those techniques were considered genuinely revolutionary. He was nicknamed the Houdini of the hardwood because defenders simply couldn't anticipate what he was going to do next. He led the NBA in assists for 8 consecutive seasons, dominating the league as its primary playmaker for nearly a decade. He was a 13-time All-Star, 12-time All-NBA first-team selection, and won the NBA Most Valuable Player Award in 1957, at a time when point guards simply weren't viewed as the league's best overall player. He won 6 NBA championships alongside Bill Russell as the floor general of the Boston Celtics dynasty, the NBA's first true sustained championship organization. He was named to the NBA 25th, 35th, 50th, and 75th anniversary teams, making him one of very few players to appear on all 4 historical recognition lists. He guided Boston to repeated finals appearances throughout the 1950s and early 1960s, establishing the championship culture that would define the franchise for generations. His pace-pushing transition style increased possessions and created easy baskets before defenses could get set, directly shaping the fast break philosophy that later influenced every coach from Pat Riley to Mike D'Antoni. A historians consistently describe him as basketball's first true superstar at the point guard position and one of the most important innovators in the sport's history. Without Cousy, the role of the point guard looks completely different. Walt Frazier. Walt Frazier won 2 NBA championships with the New York Knicks in 1970 and 1973, and he was the starting point guard and primary perimeter defender on both of those title teams. He was a 7-time All-Star, 4-time All-NBA first-team selection, and earned 7 consecutive All-Defensive first-team selections, one of the highest totals ever recorded by any guard in NBA history. He was named to both the NBA 50th and 75th anniversary teams. His career averages were 18.9 points, 6.1 assists, 5.9 rebounds, and over 2 steals per game. Once steals became an official statistic, he competed against teams led by Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, Baylor, Kareem, Oscar Robertson, and John Havlicek, and was one of the toughest guards of that entire generation. The defining performance of his career was Game 7 of the 1970 NBA Finals against the Lakers, when he recorded 36 points, 19 assists, and 7 rebounds in the championship-clinching win. Those 19 assists in a Finals Game 7 remain one of the greatest individual playmaking performances in Finals history. He played at a time when point guards were expected to primarily facilitate, yet he consistently averaged around 20 points per game during his prime, making him one of the earliest point guards to succeed as both a primary scorer and primary playmaker simultaneously. He used his 6'4" frame and long arms to disrupt passing lanes and could guard both backcourt positions effectively. He formed one of the greatest defensive backcourts in NBA history alongside Dick Barnett. His jersey number 10 is retired by the Knicks, and he was inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame in 1987. Luka recorded 73 points in a regular season game, one of the 4 highest scoring totals in NBA history. He led the NBA in scoring as a European-born player, the first time that had ever happened. He's already among the all-time leaders in triple-doubles before turning 27, and his career averages through the early stages of his career exceed 28 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists per game. He was one of the fastest players ever to reach 10,000 career points, 2,000 assists, and 2,000 rebounds simultaneously, a combination of milestones that puts him in historically unique territory. He owns one of the highest career playoff scoring averages in NBA history and recorded multiple 40-point playoff triple-doubles before age 25. He led Dallas to the NBA Finals while serving as the clear offensive centerpiece and earned multiple All-NBA first-team selections before reaching what most players consider their prime years. Before the NBA, he won the EuroLeague championship and helped Slovenia win its first Eurobasket championship at only 18 years old, making him arguably the most accomplished international prospect ever to enter the league. He's one of the league's most dominant pick-and-roll operators, one of the best post-up guards in basketball because of his strength and footwork, and one of the very few players capable of averaging over 30 points while simultaneously ranking among league leaders in assists. His size, scoring ability, rebounding, and passing have drawn direct comparisons to Magic Johnson, LeBron James, Larry Bird, and Oscar Robertson. He generates one of the highest percentages of his team's total offense through scoring and assists combined, and he regularly ranks among league leaders in advanced offensive metrics, including player efficiency rating and box plus minus. Damian Lillard scored 71 points against Houston, making 13 three-pointers in that game, one of the highest scoring performances in NBA history and the most points ever scored by the oldest player to reach 70 in a single game. He's won 3 NBA three-point contests and is among the all-time leaders in career-made three-pointers. He won Rookie of the Year, earned 9 All-Star selections, 7 All-NBA selections, an All-Star Game MVP, and an Olympic gold medal, and was named to the NBA 75th anniversary team. He became Portland's all-time leading scorer and averaged over 25 points, 6 assists, and 4 rebounds for his career. His career free throw percentage sits near 90%. The phrase Dame Time became a genuine cultural reference point for clutch basketball because he kept delivering. In 2014, he hit a series-winning shot against Houston. In 2019, he eliminated Oklahoma City with a 37-foot walk off three-pointer that became one of the most iconic shots in NBA playoff history instantly. He's one of only a few players ever with multiple career playoff series ending buzzer beaters. He carried Portland to the Western Conference Finals in 2019 while frequently playing with limited all-star level support around him. He was one of only a handful of players to average at least 32 points over a full season and consistently ranked among league leaders in offensive box plus minus and offensive win shares. His shooting range forced defenses to extend well beyond the three-point line on every possession, directly influencing how teams defended perimeter players throughout the league. His deep pull-up shooting and clutch shot making gave him a style and a reputation that very few players in the history of the sport have earned. Tony Parker won 4 NBA championships in 2003, 2005, 2007, and 2014, all with the San Antonio Spurs, making him one of only a handful of point guards in history with at least 4 titles. He started on every one of those championship teams and won the 2007 Finals MVP after averaging 24.5 points per game against Cleveland while shooting over 56% from the field during the series. He became the first European-born player ever to win NBA Finals MVP with that performance. He was a 6-time All-Star, 4-time All-NBA selection, and was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. The Spurs retired his number 9 jersey. He played in 226 playoff games, one of the highest totals ever, and retired 5th all-time in playoff assists and among the top 10 all-time in playoff points, holding the all-time record for career playoff points by a point guard. He played in 6 NBA Finals and 7 Western Conference Finals, and won over 130 playoff games. He finished with over 19,000 career points and averaged over 20 points in 6 different seasons, including a 55-point regular season game against Minnesota. He led the entire NBA in points in the paint, despite being a point guard, built on an elite first step, an exceptional teardrop floater, and outstanding body control with either hand over defenders much taller than himself. He also led France to its first Eurobasket championship in 2013 and was named Eurobasket MVP. His 18 seasons as a starting point guard at the highest level changed how European guards were evaluated around the world permanently. Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving is considered the greatest ball handler in basketball history by many players, coaches, and analysts who've watched him up close. His dribbling includes elite ambidexterity, an extremely low ball, advanced hesitation moves, inside-out dribbles, crossovers, spins, behind-the-back combinations, and instant direction changes maintained at full speed. And unlike many guards who dribble for entertainment, every move he makes consistently creates real separation and real scoring opportunity. He's an NBA champion, 9-time All-Star, 3-time All-NBA selection, Rookie of the Year, All-Star Game MVP, and was named to the NBA 75th anniversary team. The most famous moment of his career came in Game 7 of the 2016 NBA Finals, when he hit the go-ahead three-pointer over Steph Curry with under 1 minute remaining to help Cleveland complete a comeback from 3 games to 1 against the 73-win Warriors, delivering the city its first major professional sports championship in 52 years. He averaged over 27 points per game in that finals. He's a career member of the 50-40-90 club conversation, an elite pull-up three-point shooter, outstanding catch-and-shoot player, exceptional mid-range scorer, and one of the greatest finishing guards ever with elite touch from nearly any angle, including reverse layups, floaters, wrong foot finishes, and high degree of difficulty bank shot. His turnover rate has been low relative to the volume of shot creation he produces throughout his career. Young players around the world study his ball handling, footwork, and finishing because his combination of creativity and efficiency has made him one of the most copied offensive players of the modern era. Few guards in NBA history have possessed the complete offensive package that Irving brings every single night. Chauncey Billups. Chauncey Billups earned the nickname Mr. Big Shot because he kept making them when they mattered most. But his greatest accomplishment was winning the 2004 NBA championship and Finals MVP by defeating a Lakers team that featured Kobe Bryant, Shaq, Karl Malone, and Gary Payton, a team many considered one of the greatest rosters ever assembled, and Detroit beat them 4-1. Billups averaged over 21 points and 5 assists in that final. The Pistons had no regular season MVP, no scoring champion, and no first-team All-NBA player. They won through leadership, defense, ball movement, and efficient offense, with Billups directing all of it. He was a 5-time All-Star, 3-time All-NBA selection, 2-time All-Defensive Second Team, and was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. The Pistons retired his number 1 jersey. He was one of the earliest modern point guards to combine elite three-point shooting with a career free throw percentage above 89%, one of the best free throw rates in NBA history. His assist-to-turnover ratio was consistently outstanding, and his decision-making under pressure was considered among the most reliable in the league throughout his career. After being traded to Denver, he transformed the Nuggets and led them to the 2009 Western Conference Finals, one of the deepest playoff runs in franchise history. He consistently ranked among league leaders in advanced metrics despite modest scoring total because his efficiency, low turnovers, defense, and clutch play all translated directly into winning. He remains one of the few point guards in NBA history to win Finals MVP as the unquestioned leader of a championship team, placing him alongside Magic Johnson, Isaiah Thomas, Tony Parker, and Steph Curry in that specific historical company. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here. I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching.